This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody.
Nailed it.
Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I got to tell you, after 2.5 days at the Combine, those reads are a lot harder.
I'll tell you,
They're a lot
after 2.5
harder
days
to
at the
do.
Combine, I could use one of those comfortable couches and lounge
They're
chairs.
a lot harder to do.
Ready to put my feet up. It's
Deprived.
a lot of
I
walking.
know, woe is us, right? Like, we had to, you do
I
this-
probably need it.
telling me.
I
complain.
I'm cleanly shaved for the first time forever, which I didn't want to do. My trimmer broke. And now everybody's seeing what was under there. And yeah, I needed the steps.
Oh my goodness. My voice last week, I knew it was a little shot. I knew there was a little bit of raspiness going on there, but hearing that back, I was maybe
It's because you're worn out from doing so much podcasting, right?
Yeah, I warn 100% what it is. Exactly. Well, we're back. We're back from the Combine. We're in the studio again. Feels good to be back at home after a week at the Combine. Never complain about the Combine. Love the Combine. It's my favorite event of the year. My favorite trip of the year is to go to Indianapolis. I was a little disappointed, though, that I didn't get to Prime 47 for dinner later in the week. Did Elmo's, didn't do Prime 47. That was a little disappointing.
You got a steak.
But Thursday night, the workouts ran late and it just didn't line up for me to end up there this year. But you got some shrimp cocktail.
I did, yeah.
I watched it happen. Your first experience. You didn't know what you were getting yourself into.
I feel like I handled it fine.
You handled it fine, but I did tell you that it's got a kick. It comes
It
after
does.
you.
It does. I found out that there's because I tell my buddy about it. There's no way it's like that. So I don't know if it's the same when you buy it in the store, but I found out they sell bottles of it in the store. So
They do.
I'm gonna make my buddy try it.
They do. I don't think it's the same personally from
Okay.
experience, but that's anything
It doesn't have
like
to
that.
taste the same. It just has to be as hot. I just want to make him feel how hot it is.
Everything like that is
Yeah,
never
it's
the
all-
same
yeah.
when you put it into the supermarkets and stuff. But anyways, I digress. That's a little 2 minutes of what went on at the Combine post Wednesday Catch-22 last week. So that was a fun week and we had a fun time. We're gonna recap or post-mortem here the Combine a little bit at the beginning of the show. I know everybody is eager for the start of free agency next week, so a lot of free agency talk. We do plan on talking plenty of free agency, but before we do that, I do have some last takes, leftover takes from the Combine, as I know you do as well, Alex. So before we get truly rolling, you don't know what to do without football Sunday? Spend the off-season building a better Easter brunch with Bob's Discount Furniture. Shop Bob's for the latest spring styles like Betty, a mid-century modern dining set available in 4 retro chic colors and featuring an extendable table that makes it easy to celebrate the season with the whole home team. So gather around the table and score a style touchdown with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. All right, I want to start with an opening take, and then we're going to do 3 up, 3 down Combine style.
Right. I have an opening take too. That'll kind of lead us in up and down.
So we're gonna go both give an opening take. How about that? And then we have 3 up, 3 down Combine style. So just like we do it in season to recap the Patriots' last game, we'll do it for the Combine workouts, the winners and losers, ups, downs, whatever you want to call it. But my big opening take, or takeaway, I should say, from the Combine last week is that this is not the draft that you want to be stuck reaching for need. This is not the draft for that.
Right.
This is a draft that has a few really, really strong positions. I think we've all heard those by now. Defensive line, running back, tight end. I think interior offensive line's pretty good too, especially when you project all the tackles that are going to have to move inside to interior offensive line. It's a strong class. Those 3 positions, or 3.5 if you want to include the guards and the centers, that's the strength of the draft. And I think if you have to color outside the lines, if you need a top 10 left tackle, if you need a top 10 wide receiver, if you need any of those types of things, I think that you're in trouble. Not saying that you can't have other options. I'm just saying I think that you would be reaching on a lot of those players at, let's say, 4 overall. I would also say the same thing about rounds 2 through 7 of this draft, though. You want to be in a position as a football team where you can really hit and lean into the strength of this draft, which is undoubtedly the positions that I just named. So I was blown away by the running back workouts, which I know is it might surprise you a little bit.
Definitely.
But sitting there on Saturday watching, okay, next guy, 5'11", 220 pounds, 4'4". Next guy, 5'11", 220 pounds, 4'4". I was like, this is crazy, right? So there's plenty of running backs in this draft. There's a slew of edge rushers and defensive linemen. So my big takeaway for the Patriots is that you need to approach free agency to fill some needs that are not available to you in the draft. Looking specifically at offensive tackle and wide receiver from a Patriots prism, because what I would do is sign up a couple of offensive tackles that you think are starting caliber, go after a big fish in the wide receiver market, and then hammer front 7 in the draft, right?
Yep.
You can find all of these front 7 guys. You can find defensive linemen in the first 3 rounds of the draft that are going to come in and make a big impact for you. So that was my big takeaway. I think that if you get stuck in a position, kind of like the Patriots were in last year, you are going to be reaching on players at certain positions and leaving maybe half a dozen higher graded players on your board because you need a tackle, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to be in that position.
Well, that's why, and that leads perfectly into my take. Like we'll get to free agency later in the show. I want to give Matt Dolph credit for half of this take because it was a really good point by him. He called Ronnie Stanley and to a lesser extent Cam Robinson the linchpin of the Patriots offseason, because if you can sign one of those guys and check the box at left tackle, and those are probably the only 2 guys that definitively check that box, right? They do it to varying degrees, but I think you feel good about them. It frees you up to have a lot more flexibility both in free agency and the draft. And when it comes to the draft, coming away from the combine, I'm not saying that any of these players are bad players, but let's say Travis Hunter goes before 4, right? You're facing a major question with a lot of the guys we've talked about.
Yeah.
Will Campbell, arm length. Mason Graham, undersized. Will Johnson, coming off a significant injury, didn't play last year. Tet McMillan, you're worried about speed and explosiveness. So, small offensive lineman, small defensive lineman, slow receiver, kind of unknown corner. So I'm going to add, let's say Travis Hunter goes, right, and they have left tackle answered. Knowing what we know now, Evan, who is the just best player on the board if Travis Hunter is gone? Who is the best player?
I don't know. I don't like where you're going with this.
So, all right, there's
I have
like
a feeling I know what you're going to say.
Okay, so no, I'm going to say something that you're not going to like, and then I'm going to
Yeah.
couch it with something that is my real question to you. The best player on the board after Travis Hunter is Ashton Jeanty.
I knew
That's
you
pretty
were
clear
gonna
at this
say
point.
that.
Now, listen,
I knew you were going to say that.
they probably shouldn't be taking a running back at 4. Okay, so I will give you that. We're gonna, and this is me saying this. We're gonna put running back aside because of the positional value. So we're doing that. Who's the best player on the board?
Will Campbell.
More so than, so what I was going to say is Tyler Warren. I think Tyler Warren, he's an older prospect. He has those questions too. But for a team that kind of needs to hit on a guy, the thing about the older prospects are they're generally high floor, lower ceiling. Should we be, and this is not me going to the table saying he is the pick, but should we be talking about, to a lesser extent, Ashton Jeanty, really to a greater extent, Tyler Warren? Should we be talking more about Tyler Warren for the Patriots at 4 coming away from the combine? I think he's maybe, assuming they have the free agency we think they're going to have, and they address left tackle, and they get at least one defensive lineman, should we be talking more about Tyler Warren for the Patriots than we are right now?
Yeah, it's a fair point, and I think Tyler Warren's been on both of our short lists for that first round pick, whether it's in a trade down scenario. I put out that tiers list before the combine, and he was certainly on there, pretty high. If I'm not mistaken, like 5 or 6 on that list. Behind Abdul Carter, behind Travis Hunter, behind Campbell, behind Mason Graham. I think he was 5 on my list behind those 4 guys. The question that you have to ask with a guy like Tyler Warren is, can you build your offense around Tyler Warren? Is he going to be 1-1, in terms of your wide receiver pass catcher depth chart, where you are running a tight end centric offense a la Gronkowski Patriots, the Kelsey Chiefs. If you want to throw like Mark Andrews in his prime with Baltimore, like that is the offense that you're going to have to run. And do you think that he has the ceiling to be able to carry that? And I think that's the question that I have.
So I'm not ready to say that 100%, but I think he has the tools to get there because of how much he can do, because of all the different places he can line up and win from those different places. I don't think he's ever going to be a home run hitter, but I think his ability to consistently move the sticks and get open in all these different ways and the way you can use him to hunt mismatches, he's a guy. You're not going to build it around him the way you would build it around a T. Higgins or a DK Metcalf. It's going to look different, but I think you can build it around him. But it just gets back to the point again where, and maybe I throw Ted McMillan into this. We kind of shut it down talking about him at 4 leading into the combine. Should we talk more about Ted McMillan at 4? I guess really what this take is, big picture, is, I kind of said going into the combine last week, it was looking to me as simple as, like, here was the flow chart. Is Travis Hunter on the board? Yes, take him. No, Will Campbell, boom. It was as simple as that. I no longer think it's that simple. I think we are wide open in the conversation once again for the 4th overall pick, especially if they sign a tackle. If they don't have a left tackle, there's a case to be, and that just reminded me of somebody else I'll get to in a second. That kind of makes the case for you got to maybe force it at tackle a little bit, but I'm curious. You say you would still take Campbell, so in this scenario,
well, you asked me who the best player available was.
Okay, so not who you would take.
Yeah, he would have, for me, he would have the highest grade on the board.
But all right, but let's say this. Let's say they sign Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah, and
it's Hunter's gone. Would you draft Campbell as a guard at 4 because he's the best player there?
No.
Okay.
But we look at it. I'm saying we agree on this point. Like, we are not big, and I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like I can here. Like, we're not big best player available without any caveats.
Without any, so
right. We're big on best player available. I usually say from a premium position.
I always say best player available for the team because I go back to the Bill Belichick
of saying it the same. We're kind of saying the same.
Well, it doesn't necessarily need to be a premium position, but best player available for the team, like the Bill Belichick, right? We did what's best for the team.
Right.
So let me throw one other guy I forgot in that whole rant. And again, this is all assuming they get the tackle and Travis Hunter goes at 4, right? What about Armand Membu? Now, I am not somebody who believes you draft Armand Membu at 4 and you make him a left tackle.
No.
We just saw them trying to move guys over. It did not work. I do not want to see them do it again.
Yep.
But if you come out of this offseason and you're using a lot of premium assets on one position group, but if there's one position group to do it, it's the offensive line, and I'm so okay with that. If you come out of this offseason with Ronnie Stanley, left to right, Ronnie Stanley, fill it in. Left guard's your weak spot. Maybe it's Layden Robinson. Maybe it's Patrick McCarry. Maybe it's a guard later in the draft, right? Carson Vincent. Ronnie Stanley, left guard to be named later. David Andrews, Mike Onwenu, Armand Membu.
Yeah.
That's a real offensive line. That's a 180. You're cooking with gas now. So that's another guy just to add to that rant. Like, if assuming they get the left tackle, Armand Membu is a guy, and I think Dane Brugler had him at 4 to the Patriots in his last mock. So, like, this conversation, and this is why we couched everything going into the combine that we were talking about. The conversation at 4 is so much more wide open now than maybe we thought it was going to be going in, especially if they can add that left tackle, whether it be Ronnie Stanley or Cam Robinson.
So just a couple of things there. I want to go back to the Warren conversation for a second. I do have some questions about whether or not he, to use a term that Elliot Wolf has used in the past, is he a coverage dictating player?
I think so.
So that, because that's what they need, a Tuesday player.
Yeah.
Right. So if they're going to draft him at 4 overall, then you have to be saying to yourself that teams are going to get into game plan us, and they're going to have to take Tyler Warren out of the game. Just like they used to take Gronk or Kelsey or whatever. I'm not trying to put that all on him, but you know what I'm trying to say.
I'm not super confident, like definitive, yes, he can be, but I don't think, are you definitive, yes, for whatever, about a tackle, you need to check this box, or a defender, you need to check this box. Do you feel that way about anybody available at that pick? Which I would say no. So we go to that next level. I think Warren has a chance to be that player. Again, it goes back to the versatility. He's a guy in my mind, if you're taking him, he's not going to be, all right, he's our inline tight end, and he's going to run this route tree. And no, like some weeks he's going to play inline. Some weeks you're going to move him probably more heavily in a slot. Some weeks you face a man-heavy team. All right, we're going to start playing. We're going to play him on the boundary this week to get a linebacker out of the box. We're going to try to run the ball. All right, we're going to use him as a fullback this week. Like, you're going to use him to hunt matchups. It's not so much so if you're the Tuesday morning sense of it is not, we need to take away this guy because he does this well. It's, we need to be prepared for them to do anything with this guy because it's all on the table. It's a little different. It's not the most ideal situation. Yeah. And this is why, this is not me pounding the table for Tyler Warren, but this is me, like, we could, to a different extent, have the same conversation, or in a different context, have the same conversation with Will Campbell, right? Yeah. Is he, if you take him at 4, you're expecting him to be a career tackle. We don't know he's a career tackle. Are you willing to take that risk, and do you think you can develop him to the point where he can be or not? With Tet McMillan, well, he doesn't have the speed. He's definitely a matchup nightmare in some situations, but not in every situation. Can you figure out a way to use him for him to become that Tuesday player? Assuming Hunter's off the board, we can. My point is, like, I thought we were just going to do this for Campbell. We can probably do it with 6 or 7 different guys. We can do it with Ashton Genty. We can do it with Will Johnson. We can do it with Tyler Warren. You want to get into like Michael Williams and Javon Walker? I think you can do it with those guys too. So, I don't know that I'd be rushing for those guys. To me, it's somebody who's going to make. I don't know how I want to phrase that, but like, you get what I'm saying, right? Yep. No, I don't know for sure Tyler Warren's going to be a Tuesday player. You tell me who the player is on the board that we know is going to be a Tuesday player at 4, I'll tell you to take him. My point is, I don't think that guy's there, so now we have to get into, well, which of these players, if you get stuck at 4 and can't trade, or you move down slightly and you're still basically working with the same group, which one of these guys can you make the strongest case for that he has a chance to become a Tuesday player? I don't know that Tyler Warren's at the top of that list, but he belongs on the list of people we should be having that conversation about.
Yeah, I definitely agree he's on the list. And the other guy that I also think is on the list for me at this point is Tet McMillan for similar reasons.
Yeah.
And I think the main reason why, even more so than some of the reasons that I think are relevant with Warren, I think we're finding out, and maybe this will change. Maybe next week this time they'll have Chris Godwin on the roster, or they'll have Brandon Ayuk on the roster, or AJ Brown, or DK Metcalf, or whoever. Like, I'm willing to allow this to change, but just from what we are experiencing with this team for the last year, I wonder if you are going to have to go find your own receiver. And
well, Mike Vrabel kind of said that,
right? And so if that's the mindset of, we're just not in a position, even if we offer the financials, we're just not in a position right now to draw a Devontae Adams. We're not in a position to draw Chris Godwin's an unrestricted free agent come Monday. He's got 8 teams that are calling him, offering him similar contracts. We just aren't in a position to lure Chris Godwin away from the Chargers. The Chargers land him, or what? I'm just using the Chargers because they're another receiver needed team. Chiefs land him, whatever. We're just not in a position to do that. And I'm not in love with Tet McMillan. I don't necessarily look at him and see, I've said this multiple times, I don't look at him and see an elite prospect, Malik Neighbors, a Jamar Chase. Like, he's not that. But one thing that I come away from, from Indy, from the trip, is I have to recalibrate my brain to adjust for this class.
Right.
The talent in this class. And I look at Warren, too, in the same way, in the same light. And that is, in this class, those 2 guys are top 10 talents.
Yep.
In this year.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have been last year. But it's not last year, right? It's this year. So I look at Tet McMillan, and I rewatched some of the games I hadn't seen of his a little bit yesterday.
You rewatched games you haven't seen?
Yeah, I phrased that poorly.
Yes.
I watched games that I haven't seen.
That's a neat little trick you
did. The one game I did rewatch, though, actually, because I got myself tripped up there. I went back and watched him against Travis Hunter in 2023.
Okay.
And there's an obvious path there in terms of his skill set to being a big-bodied, inside, outside X receiver that can play the big slot, that can play out on the perimeter, that is going to win with separation. I think he can separate at the first two levels. I just don't think he runs by anybody. But I think when you get into that intermediate range, the stop routes, the digs, the slants, like I think that he does create some separation. And with his catch radius and with his size, he can obviously box out and go
Right, he
up
doesn't need a ton of separation.
Right, and he's got fantastic body control, hands, and catch radius. Like, that's all over his tape. So I'm revisiting the idea of Tet McMillan, and maybe all he ever ends up being is like a Drake London type player who's a top 20 receiver
Heard
in the
a
NFL.
lot more of that comp last week down there.
Yeah, top 20 receiver in the league last year, Drake London. The Patriots might be in a position where they have to look at it and say, how else are we going to get that guy?
So
How else are we going to get a number one receiver? Because we've tried in every avenue possible, right? Like we can't get Ayuk to accept the trade here. We can't get Calvin Ridley to accept our money. We can't get Chris Godwin to take our cash. We can't get T. Higgins out of Cincinnati because they keep on freaking franchise tagging the guy, right? So like, how else are we going to get that player? Like, maybe it's Tyler Warren just in a different mold, right? Maybe we're building the offense differently. We're building it around Tyler Warren. Maybe it's Tet McMillan. And is it perfect? No. But I think there's a case for both those guys.
So I actually have a take on the receivers. It's not so much a take, just, coming away from it. How do they get that guy? Matthew Golden impressed me more than I thought. I already liked Matthew Golden, as you know.
Yeah.
But, like, Tet at, even if they trade down, let's say Tet at 9, where you trade up and you get Golden at, like, 24.
So you're going to take two receivers?
No. I'm saying if it's...
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right. What's the better play? You take
else at the top.
I
don't know if Matthew Golden's going to be there at 24.
You don't think so?
Just based off of some of the things that you heard coming out of the combine, like there are some teams that might have him as the number one receiver in the draft.
Yeah. So I had, and I'm kind of thinking like for the Patriots, it's really close. Because just stylistically, right? For what Josh McDaniels wants to do.
Because he's such a great route runner.
Right. So I came in thinking
Golden is such a great.
Right. I came in thinking it was Tet, Gap, and then that group of Burden, Golden, and Igbuka.
Same.
And I kind of came away like Golden might be closer to Tet than he is to those other two.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, I don't want to overrate the 40 too much, but I don't think he plays...
No, I just thought, like...
I don't think he plays 4-2. Like, I think he runs great routes, and he's got great hands, and he's got great body control and separation ability. In the open field, I don't necessarily see 4-2, but that's okay. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just think that he has... if I were to list, like, the good things about Matthew Golden, I don't know if, like... I don't know where speed would, like, top end speed would be on that list, right?
It's, you know what, for me, and I already thought he had a really good chance of being a first round pick.
Yeah.
It's not even the 40, it's the way he spoke at his podium, hearing the way people talked about him, his approach. Like, this sounds kind of, you can tell me if this is dumb, you can tell me if I'm putting too much emphasis on this, right? The other Texas guys, Tez Johnson, they went up there and talked about how they were going to beat Xavier Worthy's 40, right?
Yeah.
And they were talking smack about it. And I'm not faulting them for being confident, but like they went up and they talked a lot of smack about it. None of them broke 4.4. Isaiah Bond, Jalen Blue, none of them broke 4.4. Golden goes up there, talks about how he wants to be coached hard, how he wants to, I thought he had a great podium, and then he goes out and he runs a better time than any of them.
Yeah.
And again, just talking to people kind of about his mental makeup, that's what's great about the combine is we see these guys on tape, but you get to kind of learn a little bit more about what makes them tick. And hearing about what makes Matthew Golden tick, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the guy I want. And, I still think he's a very confident guy. And I think he has kind of that swagger that you want from wide receiver. But I think he has that dog, too, a little bit, where he's kind of got that edge. And he's a competitor, and he's got that fire. So I like that. Like, that's the kind of thing that you learn at these events. And especially the way it's gone here with receivers the last couple of years, somebody's going to take that approach. I think he literally said about his meeting with the Patriots, they coached me hard. I want to be coached hard.
Yeah.
Like, what more can you want at this point?
So the other thing, just sort of the trickle down of the receivers at the combine, and I don't want to spoil the ups and downs too much.
Yeah, I already spoiled like two of mine.
When you look at the Iowa State receivers, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, both of those guys tested phenomenally. And one of the things that I thought of too is that now I feel like pretty strongly that with both those players, if you want one of those guys, you have to take them at 38. Like, they're not going to make it to 69.
Sorry, who is this?
Noel and both Iowa State guys.
Oh, yeah.
Higgins and Noel, right?
Would you put Restrepo in that group as well?
No.
Okay.
No. Because of his size.
But
like,
is he getting a 69?
I think he might. Because he's a slot only player.
Yeah, but he's a good slot only player.
Yeah, but Jalen Noel is a more complete receiver than he is.
I'm not saying he's going to go
Especially with the
above
speed.
Noel. There's a lot of picks between 38 and 69.
Sure. That's fair. We'll see. But my point being is that if you want one of those two guys,
Yeah.
you need to take them at 38. They're not making it to the Patriots in the third round. It's not happening. So you're either taking them at 38 or you're trading up from 69 to get one of those. But even then, I think that their range is probably now 30 to 40. Like,
Yeah, you're not moving up from 69 to get one of those guys. You're moving
Right.
down from 38 if at all.
So then
But after last year, just take him at 38 at that point.
But my fear is that if they're operating under this assumption, and I'm not saying that they necessarily are 100% this thinking, but just for the sake of the discussion, if they're operating under the whole thing of trenches, and then now you're going to have to be using another third pick in the 30s for 2 years in a row on a wide receiver.
3 and 4, essentially.
Yeah,
type
like
one.
right, like you're not really doing trenches, right?
Yeah.
And so I wonder at 4 where there is a lot of uneasiness about a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
Like, is skill player now maybe a little bit more of a consideration over trenches, and then you hammer the trenches on day 2?
As long as the trenches are addressed properly in free agency, this all banks on them.
Right, but
being able to
defensive
address
line-
these needs in free agency.
Defensive line they can find on day 2.
Yeah,
in
I'm
this
not worried
draft.
about that.
So offensive line is the question mark, and maybe like you said, you sign a Ronnie Stanley,
Yeah.
you sign a Cam Robinson to play left tackle. So now you're really just looking for right tackle competition,
Yeah.
right? So maybe it's an Ozzie Trapilo, maybe it's somebody in
Anthony Belton.
Yeah, Anthony Belton, someone in that range of this draft that can come in with Caden Wallace and maybe a lower cost free agent veteran, Morgan Moses. Let's just throw a name out there for 1 year, $9 million or $8 million. You sign Morgan Moses as a better version of what they were hoping they were going to get out of like Riley Reef or like Chukwuekorfor or whatever. And then you just kind of throw things at right tackle. Like you have 3 different layers of options there at right tackle.
Or you talk about Membu at 4. Or Membu in a trade back and you just lock that whole thing up.
Yeah, so we're going to spoil all of our ups and downs if I keep talking.
Just did.
So let's get into...
Well, now we can fire through them and get to the phone. So
let's talk about those here instead of spoiling all of them, because let's go to my list and yours as well.
Okay.
Why don't you start? Go ahead. Give me your number.
Should I just start with one we already spoiled?
Sure.
Matthew Golden.
Yeah.
I just thought he tested well, sounded like he interviewed well, checked a lot of boxes. That wide receiver 2 conversation was wide open coming into the week.
Yep.
I still could see just stylistically some teams having Burden over him. I actually had Burden go ahead of him in my they went like really close, 21 to 25, I think, in my mock draft I put out on Monday. But Matthew Golden, this momentum's been building since the college football playoff. And I think he took it and ran with it.
So I don't remember which comp I settled on for him.
Are we doing 3 and 3 or like I've won at each position pretty much?
I did 3 and 3.
Okay.
But you can do whatever you want.
Okay.
I don't remember which comp I settled on with him, but I think I underestimated him even a little bit with the comp.
This doesn't sound right. Was it Tyler Lockett?
No, that was Jalen Noel, who
Okay.
I still feel pretty good about with that comp. I
was going to say, it doesn't seem right, but I remember you throwing that one
so
out there.
the comp that I tend to like stay away from comps like this because it's such a high ceiling that you're projecting.
Oh, it was Deion Branch.
It was Deion Branch.
Yeah.
He's bigger than Deion Branch, so I think that's Deion Branch was a great route runner and a really fast, explosive, bursty route runner.
Golden that much bigger than Branch was?
A couple inches taller.
How tall was Deion Branch?
Like 5'9".
Really?
Yeah. So I've heard a little bit of this, just talking around or asking around. A couple of people threw this one at me, so that's why I feel like mentioning it. It was Stephon Diggs, and I hate to throw Stephon Diggs out there because Stephon Diggs is a hell of a football player.
I see where that's coming from, though. I do see that's like ceiling. That's a ceiling comp.
Yeah,
but
right. There was a couple people, and Stephon Diggs didn't run great in his 40. Not that matters given the career that he had. So it's not, if you're going to look at it from like a pure, mock draftable standpoint of who's the best comp, it's probably not going to be Stephon Diggs for those reasons. But, route running technician, speed, hands, all that type of stuff. Yeah. There is a little bit of that in his game. He won the week in a lot of ways at that position. My number one up though was not Golden, although I agree that was a good pick.
Okay.
My number one up was Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M.
I had him on my list too.
So Shamar Stewart goes out, puts up a 10 out of 10 relative athletic score, 4.59 with a 40-inch vertical at 6'5", 267 pounds. Freak. An absolute freak. Like superhero, hit him with the Captain America serum. Like, this guy's an absolute cyborg. Now, with that being said, he had 1.5 sacks last year and 4.5 sacks in his entire career at Texas A&M. Now, sacks isn't everything, but if you're going to draft a guy at 4 overall, you're projecting that he is going to be a double-digit sack player in the NFL.
Especially teams generally weigh production more at that position than average.
Yeah, so he did have 39 pressures last year, which isn't terrible. It's not good, but it's not terrible.
Isn't their defense kind of structured like Georgia's though, where it's sort of like an everybody eats thing? So you can't have one person putting up these massive numbers.
There's something to that. So just along those same lines, it's a little Trayvon Walker-ish, right? Where Trayvon Walker did not have great college production, absolutely blew up the combine, extremely freakish measurables and tools. Shamar Stewart, when you watch him on tape, like the speed to power pops, the length, the heavy hands, the explosiveness in his lower body to kind of go from the ground up and generate power. He just doesn't have a pass rush move. Like, he doesn't have a go-to move. Like, it's probably going to be a long arm, right? And then if you can get the long arm going, then maybe you can get a dip rip, or a ghost or something like that to build off the long arm. But right now, he just doesn't have great nuance to his pass rush. So if you give Shamar Stewart to Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams, two guys with defensive line background that know how to coach pass rushers, can you get Shamar Stewart to reach his potential? And is that worth the 4th overall pick? Because along with thinking a lot about the skill players, something we've been throwing around, Mike Dussault was probably the leader in this, throwing this around on Patriots Unfiltered, is like, who is the guy that 3 years from now we're all going to look back and say, well, they probably should have drafted Shamar Stewart 4th overall and just lived with the growing pains. I think the two most likely guys for that to happen are Mykel Williams, who didn't test, but has same sort of pedigree, and Shamar Stewart. So I just felt like mentioning Shamar Stewart in this conversation, for those reasons.
Yeah, it's a good one. I had him on my list too. I think he helped himself a ton this week.
Yeah. All right. Who's he got next?
I'll stick on defense. These aren't in order. I'm just kind of jumping around. Jahad Campbell.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot.
I love Jahad.
Do-it-all linebacker from Alabama. If you remember a couple years ago how much I liked Henry To'o as a prospect, right?
This is
a much better version of Henry To'o. And Henry To'o is a good player.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of Patriots fans were kind of hoping maybe he fell to 38 and they could build the defense around him. Not seeing it. Not seeing how he gets to 38, not seeing how he gets out of the first round. He might be a top 20 pick.
Yeah.
Just the athleticism, the size, the reaction, the instincts, the football IQ, all of it. He's the complete package. And what's crazy, he's probably not even the best off-ball linebacker in this class, but he's really freaking good.
Very good player. I thought he was great on film. Played great in some big games for Alabama too. The typical prototype linebacker nowadays, like, still has a little bit of size, but goes sideline to sideline, carries the seam in cover 2, like, can run vertical with tight ends, can cover backs out of the backfield, can spy quarterbacks and chase down athletic quarterbacks. Like, if Josh Allen, right? Like, you could put Jihad Campbell in the spy role all game long. He can reduce, he can go down on the line of scrimmage and rush the passer off the edge. Really good player.
Yeah.
Like, really just a good all-around football player. And that, it's not something I'm totally dismissing, that playmaking linebacker. Like, he's got to bring something for me in the pass rush, which I think Jihad Campbell does, and so does Jalen Walker.
That's
but
the linebacker I was referring to.
right. But like that playmaking ability from the first and second level in the defense to make the splash play.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to blow up a run game or something like that, but who's going to be the guy that gets the ball carrier on the ground, right? You know, those two guys can do that. All right, my next one, we've already mentioned him a little bit though, is Armand Membu. I mean, he just
I had him too.
He just beasted. He had a 91st percentile 10-yard split. He benched 31 reps on the bench press. 9.98 relative athletic score. So the one thing that I would say on Membu that gave me a little bit of hesitation, it's not even the right tackle thing. I don't mind that. Like, the Chargers just drafted Joe Alton, made him a right tackle, and I don't think they're complaining about that. The one thing that I worried about a little bit is that he's shorter. Like, just he's a stockier, shorter.
6'3", 6'4",
yeah,
right?
Like, he's a shorter guy. And I know we're saying he's 6'4", and the people are like, that's not short. Like, it's short for an NFL tackle.
It's average.
It's short.
It's 6'4".
It's below the 50th percentile.
I would say,
it's short.
is it six? Really?
Yeah.
That many
Yeah.
tackles? Or that? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, Ozzie Trapillo was 6'8".
I would think like
So-
6'4" would be like the basement of where I wouldn't call you short, right? Like 6'3", now I'm thinking short tackles. 6'4", I'm
Yeah.
like, he's on the shorter side of average.
That's
if that
fair.
makes sense.
But so he's a little shorter, a little bit
Yeah.
more of that like stout, compact build.
But he's not. He's got long arms.
33.5 inches. So he's above threshold with the
Yeah.
arms. I think the one thing though, just in terms of the height that I think is important.
Yeah.
Stride length. Like, stride length is really important because it might take Shamar Stewart 3 steps to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And it takes Armand Membu 5 steps to get somewhere. And so it's the same thing, that conversation that I bring up a lot of the time with Mason Graham, where it's like a little bit of that pitter patter, right? Like, we got to take some extra steps to get to places, especially in pass protection. So when I watched Armand Membu on film, I just saw some of that where, he's got to work a little bit harder to get out to landmarks and things like that because he is a little bit stubbier, right?
Yeah.
So that would be my only concern with him. But his athleticism and his ability to convert that into power is all over the tape. Like, this workout surprised me just because of how amazing it was, but it didn't surprise me that he's athletic, right?
Right.
Like, that's the type of player that he is. And to your point, if you sign Ronnie Stanley, even if you sign Cam Robinson and you draft Armand Membu to play right tackle, and then you have your left tackle and your right tackle, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and then it's we know when who's going to be back, David Andrews, and then it's just figuring out that left guard.
All right, who's next?
Let's see, who did I get to? I know he's on your list, but I'll say it anyway. I think he's on your list. Mason Taylor from LSU.
Yeah, really good workout.
Really good.
Like, on-field
He's
workout,
just
yeah.
like so polished.
Yeah.
Which I think he's 20, right? He's 20 years old.
Yeah, he's young.
This is, again, it's all over the tape. You see it at LSU. Like, he's really advanced for his age, just as a football player's technique, his ability to see the field, things like that. So what stood out to me, not so much like the number testing, but like going through the gauntlet, right?
Yeah.
Going through some of the on-field drills, like the pass catching drills, hitting the blocking sled. A lot of the tight ends struggled. I was underwhelmed with the tight end workout as a whole. Now, I should note that Warren and Loveland didn't work out, and Gunnar Helms sprained his ankle before he had a chance to run.
Yeah.
So that didn't help.
Yeah.
But he's just so advanced for where he's at this point when it comes to Mason Taylor. It's impressive.
Yeah, really just natural hands catcher. Like, through that gauntlet, it just looked easy. He looked smooth. He was right on the line. He wasn't fighting the ball at all. He's an impressive player. And, you can tell with some of those guys that they're, sons of coaches.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
yeah.
they just have such great, or sons of former players, I should say. They have.
He is a coach now.
Is he a coach?
He's
Like high
he
school
might
or
have
something?
no. He's at Miami, like the U.
Yeah.
I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think he's one of those like director of player development or
Got it.
something.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly.
I didn't have him on my list because he didn't do.
Oh
all
no, he's the defensive ends coach at the U.
Okay, so he didn't do. Mason Taylor didn't do all the testing, so I didn't.
Yeah.
I kind of stuck to the testing guys for this. But with Mason Taylor, just last thing, Mike Vrabel was in Jason Taylor's draft class, and the two of them supposedly, this is a Mike Vrabel story. He told us a story, and I think he told it again on NFL Network, because of Taylor and Vrabel being close in the alphabet, they spent like all week together
Okay.
at the combine. So he knows Jason Taylor pretty well. And those are the types of connections that I look at, and I think NFL bloodlines and things like that are going to matter a little bit to somebody like Mike Vrabel. So Mason Taylor's definitely a big board guy, right? He's squarely on the big board. There's no doubt about that. All right, the last one I combined both these guys together because they went to the same school. I mentioned them already.
Wait, can I guess?
Yeah.
The Oregon defensive tackles?
No.
Oh, they should both be on there. Derek Harmon, Amari Caldwell. They were both good.
Iowa State wide receivers.
Oh, okay, fair.
So I was blown away that Jaden Higgins ran a 4.47. Blown away by that. He doesn't play to a 4.47, which obviously gives you a little bit of pause, but I actually wonder now. Some receivers are like this because they're crafty as hell and it's smart. Is he just a tempo guy where like he knows it's not always best to just open it up, right? So he might be one of those guys that tries to like lull you to sleep and then he's gonna go past you with speed when he needs to and might go about it that way. I love receivers like that change gears, right? They're not always, if you're a 6-speed, you're not always gonna be in 6th gear, right?
Right.
Sometimes you want to be like in the 2nd gear, right? And just kind of lull the guys to sleep. So he ran a 4.47. I thought he was really tested extremely well. He has basically solidified himself as the number 2 X receiver in this class. And I don't think it's particularly close. It's Tet number 1, and then it's Jaden Higgins number 2 in that big body, 6'3", 6'4", X receiver mold. And then my guy Jalen Noel, just like, my goodness, what a workout all the way through. Explosiveness, agility, speed, 4.39 in the 40-yard dash. I've compared him to Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett actually just got released by the Seahawks, so we can talk about that here in a minute. But I don't think that Jalen Noel is a Julian Edelman, Wes Welker slot receiver. Jalen Noel is a speed slot. Jalen Noel is going to separate at the 3rd level. He's going to run posts. He's going to run overs. He's going to run seams and go balls, and he's going to stack guys. Like, he's going to run past people. He's an explosive player, and he's a great route runner. So I don't see him getting out of the top 50 now. I think he's a really good player. So those 2 guys.
Yeah, you want to just rapid fire through the rest of mine because I didn't do any quarterbacks. I didn't think any of them were good.
Nope, they were terrible.
Donovan Edwards, running back, Michigan.
Yep.
Isaac Tesla, wide receiver, Arkansas.
Yep.
And then just respond to whoever you want. Cornerback Darian Porter, Iowa State.
Kind of like Darian Porter.
If you know how I do the draft, that's such a. Of course, he likes Darian Porter.
I'm a Darian Porter.
And then Billy Bowman, safety from Oklahoma.
So Darian Porter interests me because of the size, right? Like, he's got some size, he's got some athleticism.
Just some size. He's 6'3", and he had the longest arms of any corner in the class.
He's got,
and he ran a 4.3.
He's got athleticism. He's got size. If you're trying, I don't know if this is necessarily where they're going to go early at cornerback, but if you want to pair somebody with Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, there was some reporting that they're looking for like those day 2 corners with size. Yeah, so it's Darian Porter. It was Tariq Woolen. Who's the guy from Kansas State I liked who went to the Colts?
Juju Brents.
It's that, here's that guy again that I'm going to like in the draft because big corner run fast.
You're a simple man.
I mean, like.
That's a good way to put it.
And he's agile, too. He's not a straight line athlete. So it's like, all right, he has size and he can move around. Like, that's a good floor to start with. So,
all right, do you have any more?
No, those are all mine.
All right, I'm going to get to the downs here.
Yeah.
2 of my guys are on this list, which it kills me. I got to go.
I got some of my guys on here, too.
So, number 1.
And some of your guys.
I was hesitant to put him here because he still killed it. Like, he's had a great workout. But Will Campbell's got to go on here,
He has
right?
to. He has to.
He's a guard.
It's not like he measured in just short, right? It was significantly short.
So 32 and 5/8. I know a lot of people are more alarmed by the 77-inch wingspan, which is would be basically one of one.
It was the short. So Felger had this yesterday. The shortest wingspan of any tackle to measure in at the combine since 1999. So not even like first round pick, not even like guys who made a pro. Like it has not happened. He would be, if you still believe in him as a tackle, like good for you. You're talking about him being an alien. You're talking about him being a truly generational, one of a kind player.
Goodbye, sweet prince. Goodbye.
Well, I have another guy on here. Can I just piggyback off that real quick?
Goodbye, sweet prince. Yeah.
I kind of put Mason Graham in that same category. Well, not to the same extent. Well, no, but I just mean like the reason we were talking about Mason Graham as a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Because my scouting report on me, you can go find it at 985sportshub.com.
Nice.
moves like a player 20, and I don't think I said it exactly like this, but it's like, moves like a player much lighter than he is. Well, it turns out he's much lighter than he was listed, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
What made Mason Graham such a special player, in theory, was there's not a ton of 325-pound defensive tackles moving the way he was moving. There are some 295-pound defensive tackles that move that way, right? It still means a good player. Like Braden Fisk, right? Yeah. Braden Fisk is a good player.
I got tarred and feathered for making that comparison.
No, you were right. You were exactly right. And Braden Fisk is a good player. Would you take Braden Fisk in the top 5? Probably take him higher than wherever he went, 40th last year. But, he's not. Mason Graham is and this is why it's a different extent to Will Campbell. Because Will Campbell, you're talking about changing positions.
Goodbye,
it's the Tyler Lockett update.
Goodbye.
But, with Mason Graham, he's not the prototype of player we necessarily thought he was. And I don't know that he played at 295. I think he played probably right around 300, 305. But, there's a big difference between 305 and 320, especially when you factor in, his arm length came in short, too.
Right.
So, for the measurements, and he didn't work out at all, but for the, when I said, didn't do the on-field workouts, but for the measurements being what they are, it's kind of similar to Campbell. Is he still a good player? Yes. Is he a good player in the sense that we thought he was? And is he a good player, top 5 pick kind of good player? No, there's significantly more questions now that come with his makeup.
So the one last thing I'll add on Mason Graham, there's comps for Mason Graham. Yeah. It's a smoother comp than I would say that it is with Will Campbell at tackle. But
there is no comp for Will Campbell at tackle. That's the whole point. They kept trying to make Michael Ruse a thing that's not the comp.
Leaving Aaron Donald out because he's Aaron Donald, right? Yeah. He's retired to the. We're not going to compare quarterbacks to Tom Brady.
Right. If you're saying, Aaron Donald was that size,
right.
Well,
maybe
is best he Aaron Donald, right?
Okay,
so he is to be the best defensive tackle in the history of football for it to work out.
No. So the guys that he should be touting as can be this kind of guy is an Ed Oliver, who is also 6'3", 290, 295. A guy that a lot of people are projecting come Monday. Is it 12 or 4? I always forget on Monday. I think it's 12. Monday at 12:01, the Patriots are going to strike a deal with Milton Williams at the top of free agency. I'm saying hypothetically. Not
if they
saying
do.
They will.
Oh, so it's 4 o'clock is Wednesday.
Right. So hypothetically, if they, Milton Williams plays at 290, 295.
Yeah.
Right. So there are some comps out there for guys like that. It's just you're projecting at 4 overall that this is going to be a guy you never take off the field. So not on top of the fact that, at 295, I think that you're really saying that he has to play 3 technique. He has to play over the guard or outside, right? Yeah. Or when I say outside, outside the shoulder of the guard, right? So you can't play him at 1 tech or nose. He can't play that.
Right.
He's going to get bullied. So you have to put him further away from the football, and that just is kind of how we talk about, Xavier Restrepo. This guy's a slot, and he's only a slot. Mason Graham is now only a 3 technique. Now I think he could probably play 3-4 end if you want to get technical, but it's the same thing, right? Yeah. Now instead of a 3 tech, you're a 4-eye. We're bumping over a half a yard if that, right? So we're talking about the same thing.
And you're not going to have a guy play 3-eye and 4. You're not going to have 2 guys on the same field in those 2 spots.
Right. So it becomes. It's not that he's a bad football player. Someone that we had on said they called him a leverage king. Right. He's just gets underneath you. He's really, really strong. He can get underneath you. He's got that wrestling background. So he's really violent with his hands, and he's great with leverage and pad level and all that kind of stuff. But because of his measurables, he is going to have to be a technician that outworks everybody. That's going to be his path to being great in the league, and it just feels a little rich at 4 overall for that kind of skill set.
I'd agree with that.
All right, the next guy on here.
Do you want to do is mea culpa the right word? No. Do you want to do a mea culpa on Tez Johnson, or am I doing the victory lap on Tez Johnson?
He's on my list.
Okay.
And just like I said with Will Campbell, goodbye, sweet prince.
Turns out the question wasn't fast and it was, can he be fast?
Well, he's quick.
He's quick.
He's quick, not fast.
Yes, but he's also 154 pounds.
So 155. Here's the thing.
Did they change that? Because it definitely was 154 on the broadcast.
I wrote down 155. So
it was 154 on the broadcast.
So because I can't quit,
yeah,
my Tez Johnson love. he tested exactly the same as Tank Dell.
But he didn't.
He did.
He didn't.
He did.
He did not.
Why
I gotta pull
not?
up the Tez Johnson numbers. Because he didn't.
He did. He ran a 4.51. Tank Dell ran a 4.49.
That's different.
Oh
Tank
my God!
Dell,
We're
Tank
talking
Dell.
about 2/100ths of a
Yes,
second.
that's what the combine is.
Oh my God!
That's absolutely.
That's
Tank Dell.
crazy.
Tank Dell's
Stop
also.
it.
Tank Dell's also 12 pounds heavier.
He was heavier.
Tez Johnson, they showed it.
He was on my downs list. You don't have to rant.
He's
on my downs
second
list. He had a bad
lightest
week.
player in the history of the combine.
It was not good.
If you're 4.55, if you're running a 4.5 speed at 154 pounds, that's why I wrote down 155 because the
He's
first
quick, not
one he ran
fast.
was 4.55. Okay, so he's gonna run. So you're gonna have him run return routes, and that's all he's gonna do because you can't send him over the top, and you can't send him in the middle of the field.
Well,
So you're gonna have
in
to
the
do one
on-field
thing.
workout, he had the fastest go route at the combine.
But how long did it take him to get up to that speed?
All I'm telling you is that I do think he's got
This
speed.
doesn't sound like a guy that's on your down list.
He's on my downs list. He's 155 pounds soaking wet, and he ran a 4.51.
You can't.
That's not a good combination.
It's really not. You can't send him over the middle of the field. It's going to be tough to send him down the field. If you just want to have him running return routes and short outs all game, you can do that. But how high are you picking that guy?
So that was my next point about Tez Johnson because you don't have to take your victory lap. I admitted that he tanked.
Yeah,
all
not
right,
enough.
No pun intended with
Okay.
Tank Dell. He had a bad
And
combine.
you're couching a little bit.
Yeah, because he's quick, not fast.
Also, to go back to the Mason Graham thing,
he ran the
right?
fastest 3-cone. That's not nothing.
It's not nothing, but you're going to compare him to Tank Dell. So then,
Yeah.
why can't we
he's Tank
compare
Dell.
Mason Graham to Aaron Donald?
Oh, come
These
on.
guys are-
Tank Dell is not.
I know he's not, but my point is
Donald
Tank Dell. Tank Dell's an anomaly to a different extent than Aaron Donald, but Tank Dell's an anomaly. Comparing him to Tank Dell is saying he's going to be another anomaly, and you can't necessarily do that.
So he's not as fast as this player in the 40 because he's not as fast as anybody apparently in the 40. But like, if you don't want to comp him to Tank Dell because you don't think that he's good enough to reach that ceiling, like 2.2 Atwell is like kind of the floor.
I
right?
don't even remember what 2.2 Atwell ran.
He ran pretty well. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure off the top of my head, but I'm sure if it was comparable, I would have remembered, right? To use that.
I'll
as,
tell you because I want to look up
as-
another guy
to
too.
support my argument. So like the floor seems to be like a 2.2 Atwell, who's like more like production wise has kind of been like Pop Douglas.
2.2
right?
ran a 4.39.
Yeah, no, he's much faster. I said he was faster. Now, Tank Dell is like still the ceiling comp to me. With all that being said, my question now with Tez Johnson, like, does Tez Johnson get drafted? Like, are we sure he's going to get drafted?
So I'm going to go back to my comp, which is Devin Tompkins, who
He's
weighed
155
167
pounds.
at 4.4. Somebody may draft him late just because of the 3-cone and the GPS tracking speed, and
Right.
say we're going to have he's a very specific. He's going to be a gadget player. He's not a full-time wide receiver. Somebody might draft him as a gadget player, and I think he might have some success there. You're certainly not taking gadget players in the top 100, not the top 50. There are some teams that do some things more creative offensively that may say we can kind of, wiggle in a roll for him. I wonder if a team like the Ravens, right, can do some of that. Some of them almost like you're sort of using him like a running back.
Or like Zay Flowers.
Or like Zay Flowers, right?
Yeah.
So I still think he gets drafted, but I think he was projected fringe top 50 pick coming out of Senior Bowl, right? That's not happening.
No.
That's not happening.
Too
I know I always say you don't move players' draft stock too much during coming out of the combine outside of extenuating circumstances. Weighing in at 154 is an extenuating circumstance, especially when you run a 4.5.
Tough. All right, who's on your list?
Who was on my
Or
list?
left,
So, all
I
right,
should say.
so you did that for one of your guys. I'll do it for one of my guys.
Just both my guys just killing me.
I'll do it for one of my guys.
Yeah.
We talked about how awesome the running back group was, right? They're
Yeah.
great, except for Ollie Gordon.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I like Ollie Gordon is on film. Like, there's a reason you don't see a lot of 6'2", 6'3" running backs. It's hard to be nimble when you're that tall and you have that long legs. Watching Ollie Gordon on film, I was like, this guy moves pretty well for somebody who's 6'2" or 6'3". It wasn't there at the combine. Like, he's stumbling through those bag drills, did not get out of the gate good on the 40, especially in a class that is so good. He left a lot of meat on the bone. So I was talking about him as maybe like a fringe top 100 pick. Now I think you're probably in that 150 to 200 range for him. So I wanted to see more from Ollie Gordon. I really wanted to see more from Ollie Gordon, especially in those agility drills. I thought that's where I didn't think he was going to be the best at him, but I thought for his size he would impress. And no, he looked like a 6'3" running back.
So the last one I have here is not necessarily directly related to the Patriots, but Tyler Booker had a rough combine, the guard from Alabama. And the reason why
I still think he's a first round. That guy's an Eagle, man. You can put that in.
So the reason why I put him on here is because there's always a domino effect, right? Like if one less guy is going to go in the first round or is going to go in between 4 and 38, then it impacts the Patriots.
Bumps a guy like Gray Zabel maybe up the board,
right? Or a Donovan Jackson, from Ohio State, right? Like so, like everything always has an effect. Tyler Booker, I think, is still going to get drafted based on the tape. I think you're going to trust the tape.
He's going to get drafted. I think he's going to get drafted.
I meant first round.
Yeah.
I think a lot of teams are going to still trust the tape with him.
Philly.
But he would be a testing outlier to be a first round pick at guard, right? Not only is he a guard, but he's also an unathletic guard on top of that. Also, just people that were there. We weren't there on Sunday. Brandon Thorne was there, though, and some other people that I trust were just saying that even in the on-field workout, he looked rough. So maybe he's hurt. Maybe there's an injury there that we don't know about. But Tyler Booker was the guy that a lot of people saw as like a top 20 player in this class, and he did not have a good day.
I'll give you one more.
Yeah.
Kind of same thing. Just didn't have the testing, and that's Harold Fannin.
Yeah.
He's had, didn't really have the Senior Bowl you were hoping he would have.
Yeah, he was like an average to above average tester instead of a great
and now
tester.
He's, didn't pop at the Senior Bowl or at the Combine, and I thought he looked rough on the on-field drills too, the blocking rep, and it's one rep, but that was pretty bad.
Yeah.
The idea of him being, I don't know that he gets into the top 50. He might go a little later, especially when I think the more you learn about this tight end class, even, Gunnar Helm was on my list, and then you find out he sprained his ankle before he began testing. So, I feel like the more I find out about this class, the more I like from the tight ends. And while all these guys are going one way, I feel like Harold Fannon's going another way.
Yeah, Harold Fannin terrifies me for the Patriots.
It's the comp is Jonnu Smith.
Yeah,
it's very easy.
He's Jonnu Smith.
It's the scheme touch thing again.
And it's just like usage and all that. Like I just don't think he's a great fit for Josh McDaniels.
No, I don't think so.
And I would worry.
You know who was good though with that position group that is a good fit for Josh McDaniels? Robbie Oots. He had the best vertical of any player over 270 pounds since 2003 or something. That's power. That's power right there.
You know that.
We want them to add a fullback, right? We want them to bring the fullback back and do some of that, but maybe modernize it a little bit, involve him in the pass game. Oots looked good catching the football. I thought he tested well. He loves Bill O'Brien. I got to talk to him. He raved about Bill O'Brien in the Patriots offense. We talked a little Heath Evans, which was cool. Throwback name there that he knows. I should have put Robbie Oots on my up list. I regret that I didn't.
All right, so that's a wrap on the Combine. Hope you enjoyed all the coverage of that. We're going to segue here into your calls and emails and also into free agency. But before that, whether you're in the game or betting on the game, you'll need a game plan. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the New England Patriots, provides you with everything you need to build your personal betting game plan so you can get in on all the action while practicing safe bets. Visit DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming to learn more about all the safe betting tools DraftKings has to offer. Hope is here. 800-327-5050 or gamblinghelplinema.org. Must be 21 plus. Play it smart from the start. GameSense MA. Physically present in Massachusetts. See DraftKings.com/responsible-gaming for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Okay, let's get into the free agency. Let's take these calls.
We have a new free agent, by the way.
Tyler Lockett? Is that
in addition to Tyler Lockett.
Oh, who was in
Christian Kirk.
Oh, okay.
So couple slot options out there.
All of the aging slot receivers are getting released.
Christian Kirk's not that old.
Let's get these calls though, because I know you guys have been waiting on the line for a while. George is in Warwick. What's up, George?
Hey, thanks very much. Appreciate you guys for sure.
Anytime.
Watching the Bears from a distance and mindful of Vrabel talking about, being aggressive in free agency to allow the draft to come to them, it seems like the Bears are starting to execute that. What do you think? What do you feel, you guys, the positions that might need to be filled in free agency or trades for that draft to come to the Patriots, if you will?
Yeah, awesome question, George. Thanks for calling in, and sort of something we talked about a little bit earlier on in the show. I look at tackle. I still think ideally you don't have to go tackle 4 overall in this draft, or at least maybe it's Membu, and maybe you're already forming that with a left tackle that you signed. So now you're completing the offensive line by making that draft pick. I look at that, and I look at receiver. Like, I still don't love. Like, I kind of made the case for Tet earlier, but I still don't love it. If you can go out and get a receiver, or even two veteran receivers that you feel like you can run the offense through, then you can go one of these pass rushers, best player available at 4 overall. That's where I would start.
Yeah.
All right. Patty is in Agawam. What's up, Patty? How we doing?
What is going on, gentlemen?
What's up, Patty?
So I got kind of a funny statement, and then throw you guys a question. So you remember 2 weeks ago when I called in, I said Abdul Carter reminded me of Von Miller. Now, who did he say he molded his game after at the Combine, guys?
Was it Von Miller?
Yeah, Von Miller.
Okay, there you go.
Von Miller. Listen, Patty's old school. I've been watching football for almost 40 years now. I'm not like, I don't break the film down like you guys do. I don't pay as much attention as I used to, but, I'm still good for a pretty good comp here and there.
Nice.
God, I hope he's there at 4, but I just wanted to talk about, with these guys getting released, Tyler Lockett, Christian Kirk. I love Tyler Lockett. Since he came out, he reminded me a lot of Deion Branch, but I feel like he's a little bit on the older side now. I would be all in on Christian Kirk to be our slot receiver. He's probably cheaper, less of an injury question than Chris Godwin. But also, like you guys talked about it, the guy I really would love to see them get in this year's draft is Jalen Noel, because to me, like I'm not comparing him to Tyreek Hill, but just for his size, he's rocked up. You know what I mean? He's like 200 pounds. He's solid, and he's so friggin' quick, and he's so great in and out of his breaks. I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but I know you guys talked about him, but realistically, do you think that would be a reach to take him at 38? And I'll take it off air, guys. You guys are the best.
Thanks, Patty. Appreciate it. Yeah, good shot with Von Miller. He nailed that one. That's everybody says Micah Parsons because he wears 11 and he plays for Penn State and plays the same position as Micah Parsons, Abdul Carter we're talking about. But he uses a lot of the same rush moves that Von Miller uses, that ghost rush and things like that. So I can definitely see that. To the receivers. So Christian Kirk and Tyler Lockett, for those that aren't aware, are now available. They are being released by the Jaguars and the Seahawks. Christian Kirk's a little bit younger. I've always liked
28.
I've always liked Christian Kirk. He's banged up a little bit though, right? I think he's had a couple of injury years last couple of years.
I know he was hurt last year.
Tyler Lockett is one of my favorite receivers in the league. He's just 32. It's catching up to him. I would say that I don't know if either one of these guys I'm banging the table for them going out and grabbing. If I had to pick, I would probably just go with the age and go with Christian Kirk and go with the younger player. But I want to try to, and I have a list of guys that what I would do in free agency that I want to get to here in a second. But I understand the impulse. Devontae Adams is released. Patriots, right? Do the meme.
I would take Adams.
I would take Adams, but I want to get away from the impulse of this is a recognizable brand name receiver, so we need every single one of those should be Patriots. Yes,
but just because you like one receiver as a big name, you shouldn't be accused of doing that. I'm good on Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
As much as I love Stephon Diggs coming off the ACL, that worries me.
Yeah.
Adams, he was in not just one of the worst situations in football last year, two of the worst situations in football, because he went from the Raiders to the Jets and still had 80 catches for 1,000 yards. Even if he drops off by 25%, just knock that production off 25%, he still would have been the Patriots' leading receiver last year.
The only thing I love Adams.
I'm not giving him 5 years or anything, but if you can get him for 2 years, front load it, that makes all the sense in the world to me.
So the only reason why I wouldn't be super gung-ho about Adams is what's his motivation for coming here besides money? And is he going to come here and he's going to be paid? He's probably going to be the highest paid guy in the room. Is this going to be a country club for him, or is he going to be trying to go out there and give it his all?
To me, the pitch would be if he's getting, because what is he, 31?
32.
32. If he thinks he can get one more big deal, you pitch him 1 year contract. You offer him significantly more over that 1 year than anybody's going to give him for 2 or 3. And he knows like he's going to get 120, 130 targets playing here. And now next year you get to hit the market and maybe cash in one more time.
Sure.
That would be the pitch to me. And maybe somebody will give him longer term security. But like if it's, I'm trying to think of the numbers that wouldn't be ridiculous here. But if it's like, okay, if it's a 2 year $30 million deal,
Yeah.
or a 1 year $20 million deal, you say like you're selling him on that 1 year $20 million. So next year you maybe go out and get 2 for 40 or 2 for 45 or something like that.
Fair enough. I just look,
And I don't know that he takes that, but that would be my. I think you can make the pitch. I don't know that it wins, but I think you can make the pitch.
age is a factor for me in all of this.
Yeah.
With all these guys.
I
Cooper
don't
Kupp,
love it.
Devontae Adams, Tyler Lockett. I want to, if I was the Patriots, I would just be keeping in mind that you're in a window, right?
Yeah.
And like, yes, having a professional receiver on the team like Devontae Adams. And let me just say this. If they sign Devontae Adams, I'm not going to have a pitchfork out and like be rioting that they signed Devontae Adams.
I think he'd be.
I'd be happy about
Yeah.
it. It's a professional receiver. It's a really good one. Like, I'm not saying that it's like this worst move of all time or anything like that, but I just think that you ideally want to pair Drake May with somebody that he has some runway with, that he's going to grow with, and that he's going to play with for a couple of years.
Yes, but if that guy's not available, which he might not be,
Yeah.
just getting him that, to use the phrase you used, a professional receiver in the
Fair
building,
enough.
even for 1 year, is beneficial. I'm not taking Adams over, like if, let's say Higgins became available, right?
Yeah.
I'm not taking Adams over Higgins, but if it's Adams or Darius Slayton or Adams or Amari Cooper or Adams or Stephon Diggs, I think it's Adams Adams in a different class than any of those guys. And I think Kirk and Lockett are different because it's a different role. And I wouldn't load up all on older receivers, but Kirk has been a guy that's been a 120 target guy that can catch 100 passes and wear the contact over the middle and things like that. I know the production was really bad last year in Jacksonville. The offense was really bad last year in Jacksonville as a whole, outside of Brian Thomas. Nobody was looking good coming out of that.
Yeah.
I'm not giving him a bunch of guaranteed money, but if it's Christian Kirk coming in to compete with, a Jalen Noel or a Xavier Restrepo, and maybe he beats them out in year one and they take over later on as that slot guy, I think there's value in that. I don't think Christian Kirk's going to cost you a ton. As a second option in the slot, I think that he'd be a pretty strong signing in that role. If you're signing him to throw him 120 passes for the next 3 years, you're probably overvaluing him.
Yeah, so no, I like the idea a little bit of Christian Kirk, like I mentioned, because he's only 28.
Yeah.
I still think there's some good football left in there. But I made a list because I like lists.
Okay.
And
did you rank it? I know you like to rank your list.
I tiered it.
Okay.
Okay.
Just like you do with your shopping list.
Exactly. So this is 8 free agents
Okay.
that I would sign
Okay.
if I was the general manager of the New England Patriots, which I am not. But if I was, this is what I would do in free agency. And I think it's a little different, at least somewhat,
Yeah.
than what we're, some people have thrown out there or what we're hearing. These are the 8 guys that I would go after. 3 of them are tier 1, day 1 signing, Monday at 12:01, big money, right?
Yeah.
And then 5 of them are the Commanders model, right? Like some of these
Nuts and bolts free agents.
nuts and bolts free agents.
Yeah.
Sure, great way to put it. Here are my 3. I'm going to save
Okay.
the last one, this one for last, because I think this guy, we've talked about it off the air, is being very underrated in this free agency class. But I
Okay.
want to name these first 2 because they're obvious, right?
So name them.
Ronnie Stanley
Yep.
or Cam Robinson, right? Ronnie Stanley's
Yes.
plan A, but if he doesn't hit free agency Baltimore gets a deal done down to the wire, they get it done, then I'm still okay with signing
Let
Cam
me put it this
Robinson.
way. By Monday at 6 p.m., they should have a left tackle.
If they sign Cam Robinson, it's not perfect. I know the game against the Rams in the playoffs last year was horrible.
He's a solid bridge. Now, we'll still probably be doing tackle in the draft next year,
Yep.
but you feel good about Drake May's blind side in 2025.
The one thing I want out
Yep.
of this free agency class is that come July 25th, I'm throwing that date out of my butt, when training camp opens, I do not want to ask who the Patriots starting left tackle is. I don't want it to be a question.
I don't want to ask it April.
I want to
first
get
day
to
of
camp.
OTAs is.
I want to get to camp. I want to get to mini camp.
Right.
I want to get to OTAs, and I want to say, hey, this is the left tackle.
Right.
With a Sharpie. So whether that's Ronnie Stanley or Cam Robinson, I'm good.
I don't. So and I'll just follow up on that. I don't know that there's another player available in free agency that does that. Like Dan Moore, to me, Dan Moore is coming in to compete for the job. I don't know with who, but probably a high draft pick. Like Dan Moore is coming in to compete for the job. I don't even know who else is available after that.
Like the Tyron Smiths, the Morgan Moses,
that's Trent Brown. But no, like there's
Is
only
Trent Brown available.
I think he's a free. He signed a 1-year deal, didn't
Is he? Oh my
I don't
god,
know. He was hurt last year.
Yeah.
There's only 2 guys that definitively answer the left tackle questions: Ronnie Stanley and Cam Robinson. That's it.
So that's one.
Yep.
The other big money day one, 1201.
Yeah.
I would throw an absolute bag at Chris Godwin. I would throw all of the money in the world at Chris Godwin. I know he's coming off the injury.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like that's going well.
That being said, I love Chris Godwin. And I also look at the role that he plays.
Yeah.
In a Josh McDaniels offense, the big slot, like you can run the entire offense through Chris Godwin. Like he is going to be the engine of the offense. Is he going to be the big play guy down the field? No, he's going to be your third down chain mover.
Yeah.
A straw that stirs the drink player.
Can I put a caveat on that?
Yeah.
So remember Elliot Wolf talked about wanting to make sure they have the right intel on players?
Yeah.
Hopefully they have some sort of idea of where he's at, because if he's behind schedule on his rehab, like they can't throw a bag at a guy. It's not a perfect comparison. Take this with a grain of salt. 2 years ago, they signed Juju Smith-Schuster thinking he'd fill a role, and because of his knee, he wasn't able to fill a role.
Yeah.
Right? If they're signing Chris Godwin, I want it to be, we're going to throw a bag at Chris Godwin because he's healthy and we think he can be an impact player, not we're going to sign him because he's a distressed asset, because he's banged up, and hopefully he heals to the point where he can make an impact. At that point, no. Like, you need to know that he's healthy, ready to go. This is another one. If it's, he'll be ready to go for week 1, but we'll ease him in camp. No, he needs to work with Drake May throughout the summer. They need to get on the same page. In theory, I love the idea of Chris Godwin, but he has to be healthy for that to make sense. Bringing him in, not knowing where his ankle is at, because it was a dislocated ankle, that would worry me a ton.
So it doesn't worry me because he's Chris Godwin. But
he's not Chris Godwin if he's not healthy.
Well, no, I'm just saying it doesn't worry me. Like, I know Chris Godwin can play football. So when he gets healthy and he gets on the field, I'm not going to be worried about it.
But what if he's not fully healthy until, late September?
I don't understand what the problem is. Like, he's a top 10 receiver in the league.
I don't want to do this thing again where one of their biggest free agent signings is rehabbing, right up until week 1.
I think this is
I want a guy that's ready to go.
This is a risk you have to take. When a guy
I don't think it is.
I'm just what is the, is it your money? Like, I just don't understand. Like, if he's not the guy that they think that he's going to be, like, you're not going to give him a 5-year contract. It's going to be like 3 years, $60 million. And then
you said bag.
Yeah, that's a bag. That's giving him a lot of money.
I just can't watch them miss at receiver again. I can't watch
Well,
them.
you're going to have to take some risks there, my friend. All these guys are going to come with some risk. Like, it's either going to be age or they're coming off injuries. Like, that's why they're available. Like,
I guess I'd rather have 100% healthy Devontae Adams than like a 70% Chris Godwin. I'd rather take the risk on the age for a guy that had over 1,000 yards last year.
Okay. I love Chris Godwin.
I do too. If he's healthy, I'm in. Like, don't get that misconstrued.
I'm paying
Chris If he's
Godwin.
fully healthy, I'm all in. But he has to be fully healthy.
All right. So to round out my tier 1, big splashes, right? So we have Chris Godwin, we have Ronnie Stanley / Cam Robinson, whichever is the top tackle available. I don't understand why no one's talking about Javon Holland.
Couldn't agree with you more.
I don't understand why no one's talking about Javon Holland. I just don't get it.
He's the best free agent at this point.
He's probably the best free agent on the board.
And Trey Smith getting franchised.
Yeah, he's an elite free safety.
Which they need.
Elite center fielder.
Which they need.
I have no clue what the future holds for Jabril Peppers with this football team. I also have no clue what was going on with Kyle Duggar last year. But what I do know is that bringing in a guy like Javon Holland, who is a dude, like is a beast, he's also going to put Kyle Duggar in his natural position.
And Peppers.
Yeah.
Both of them back in the box.
They're both going to be able to play the box. Guard tight ends, play the box, play the slot if you want to play them as big nickels. And Javon Holland is going to be Kevin Byard, over the top of the defense, just like Kevin Byard was in Tennessee for Vrabel for years, right? So it's the same exact type of role as Byard was a Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber safety for multiple years under Mike Vrabel. Javon Holland's 26 years old.
Oh, we might need to rewind the wide receiver conversation.
Okay, he's 26 years old, and all of those things to me add up to this guy should be somebody the Patriots are very, very interested in. I don't understand why Javon Holland is not at the top of the list. So those would be my big three. Now give your breaking news. That means nothing.
I'll just say first real quick. If you get Javon Holland, this is a thought I had, because then it's, well, let's say Peppers and Duggar do make their way back. How do you get all three of them on the field? There was a report from the Combine that they're interested in Jamien Sherwood from the Jets. Jamien Sherwood linebacker, weighs 216 pounds. Could you just turn Kyle Duggar essentially into your second linebacker, and now Peppers is your box safety? You're in nickel, but one of the linebackers is Duggar, and then it's Holland over.
Yeah, 3 safety nickel, 3 safety dime. All those things are available to you. I just think that Javon Holland, I remember talking the year after Devin McCourty retired. I talked to him for a piece about the kind of the next wave of, Patriots safeties. And the one thing that he pointed out to me is that when it was him back there, everybody had a home. Everybody knew where they were supposed to go. Devin was going to play free safety. Duggar was going to play down in the box. When it was third down with the game on the line, they knew their spots. They knew where they were going to have to go. With these two guys, it felt like they had 2 strong safeties, both trying to, cosplay as free safeties. You sign a guy like Javon Holland, you have roles again. You have distinct roles and distinct positions in the back end. All right, give the news.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
According to Ian Rappaport, NFL Network, and Tom Pelissero. Wait, where'd it go? Here we go. Seahawks star wide receiver DK Metcalf has requested a trade from Seattle, and the team has decided to explore it. There is likely to be significant interest in the Seattle star, and both sides will dig into it. A big-time wide receiver who may be on the move. Forget everything I just said about the wide receiver position 5 minutes ago. This is it. This is the move. This is the splash. For me, so there was a report out of the Combine.
He's so excited. Look at him.
When news breaks, we break it.
He's so excited.
Because I called this shot over the summer.
Your guy is a bit. I
so
can't
close.
believe that they're
So
going
close.
to. I can't believe they're going to release Tyler Lockett and trade. DK
I
Metcalf.
told you all they're going to reset. I told you all they're going. He's not going to be available. They are going to reset. This was always going to happen.
Yeah, I will stand corrected. You were right on this one.
So there was a report out of the Combine where the Packers 23rd.
Yeah.
The Packers were willing to offer 23rd and a player for DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
If I'm the Patriots, I take 38, 69, bundle them, move up, get above 23. You trade that pick, and then either a future day 2 pick, or if there's a player that the Seahawks want, maybe a guy like Pop Douglas, maybe a guy, I don't know.
Bourne.
Pick Kendrick Bourne. Well, I think they probably want somebody younger, because the Seahawks receivers that were involved in that.
They're going to be their number one.
Well, no, the Seahawks or the Packers receivers in that reported trade, it was Wicks,
Tavian Wicks,
and I forget who the other one was. But they were younger.
Romeo Dobbs.
Yes. So I don't know if Bourne worked. If they want Bourne, fine.
Yeah,
fine. Throw him in.
Just always seems like we'll give you Kendrick Bourne as that was the IU
right.
trade,
I was just thinking young receiver, so that's where Pop. And I don't want to trade Pop Douglas, but if you can get DK Metcalf, so again, that's what I would do. And there is some precedent to this. The Vikings, remember, tried to do this last year, where they traded up into the first round about a month before the draft, and then they had 2 first-round picks, and the reporting was they were trying to package those 2 to move up to get either Drake May or, just move up to get a better quarterback. They ended up moving up 1 spot, but they made both picks. If I'm the Patriots, I'm getting on the phone right now. Steelers are at 21. The Broncos are at 20. I don't know that they'd move back. I don't remember who's at 22. Maybe the Vikings at 24, and it's a pick below that 23rd pick from the Packers, but you find a way to sweeten it. I'd be on the phones right now trying to move up, because I don't think you're trading 4 for Metcalf. I don't think you are.
Oh, no.
But
no.
If you can get into the late first where you can compete with that Packers offer at 23, they should be trying to do that.
I would just offer, and not to cut you off, but I would just offer 38 in a 2026 pick.
Is that going to be more than the Packers offering 23?
It might be.
If 23 is on the table, like you could, so essentially you're going to the Packers and saying, or you're going to the Seahawks saying, here's what we would have traded for a first-round pick to give you, but we'll just give it to you and you can do the trade yourself, right? Some
Correct.
assembly required.
Yep.
Maybe they say we don't want to do the trade. Like, no, go get the first. Like, if you were going to trade it for a first, go get the first.
I just think that it maybe, but I always kind of think about it like it gives you flexibility if you take the picks to just then make the picks into what you want to make them into, right? Like, when you give them...
Well, but if they say we want a first-round pick.
Yeah, I don't think that's the problem. I don't think the trade compensation is the problem.
It's selling him out. Yeah, you got to sell him on coming here, but...
He already said publicly he doesn't want to come here.
Give him
they literally
35
asked
million
him,
reasons to want to come here.
They literally asked him...
He said, first of all, he said he didn't want to live in Massachusetts. Rhode Island is not a long commute.
He literally got asked about this on a podcast and looked into the camera and he said, New England?
He was asked about living in Massachusetts.
Literally made that face.
Give him $35 million. Give him 35 million reasons to want to come
And the Green
here.
Bay Packers aren't going to give him $35 million?
Do they have the cap flexibility? Patriots have him. Give him 36. Give him 37. This is the guy. This is the guy that checks every single box for them.
You can't just force him to come here. He has control over where he goes. We all would love to drive to the freaking Logan Airport right now and pick DK Metcalf up and bring him here. We'd all love that. It's not like that.
If you put $38 million on the table and he says no, it is what it is.
That's what's going to happen.
Okay, but put the money on the table and see what happens.
No one's saying differently. I'm just telling you to be realistic about it.
Money talks. Don't just be $1 over. Don't make it worth his while.
He doesn't want to be here. He's made that abundantly clear. So unless you're going to come in, everybody's going to offer him the going rate for a player of his caliber.
So offer him more. Overpay.
Okay.
I would overpay for DK.
I think that's so easy to say. Like, just all right, just go out.
It's not what you did to me earlier. It's not your money.
I don't care about the money. I care the player himself is. I think it's so much easier said than done to just keep throwing money at the guy and being like, more. Here, take it.
Make him really think about it. Make it hard to say no. That's all I'm asking.
I would love to have DK Metcalf on this football team. This is not a question of do you or don't you. This is an obvious, absolutely 100% slam dunk yes. Like, this is a yes. He is not going to want to come here. And I hate to say that, but it's just the goddamn truth. Like, you are going to have to offer him so much money that it is inconceivable for him to say no.
There have been plenty of guys who say, it's kind of the inverse. Like, well, I'd never leave. I love this team. I love this city, blah, blah, blah. And then the money's on the table and they leave. You can change people's minds.
All right. I hope you're right. I'm preparing myself to not get hurt. That's it. Like, I am preparing myself for the fact that he's going to want to go. The Green Bay Packers make total sense. That is a team that is a DK Metcalf away from being a Super Bowl team. That makes a whole lot of sense. The San Francisco 49ers make a whole lot of sense. They just traded Deebo Samuel. We don't know what's going to happen with Brandon Ayuk. We don't know if Brandon Ayuk is going to be 100% for next season. That makes a whole lot of sense. These are teams that he's going to be able to go to at the going rate for the type of player that he is, that are going to be in the Super Bowl next year with him on their roster. That's not the Patriots. And if I'm DK Metcalf, I don't know. Everybody says just offer him the most money. They offered Calvin Ridley the most money, and he took Tennessee's offer.
It was, but the whole thing was like the gap wasn't significant, right? The gap between what they offered and what Tennessee offered wasn't significant. Make it significant. I'll say this too. He's not a free agent. He requested a trade.
Yep.
We don't how flexible is Seattle going to be with what he wants? What if the Patriots trade offer significantly better? Is Seattle going to take less?
That's a good point. So that is a good point. In terms of that, but at the same time, like we did this with Brandon Ayuk last year. And Brandon Ayuk said, you can make the trade, but I'm not signing an extension in New England.
Why didn't Brandon Ayuk want to sign?
I don't know.
No,
because he didn't want to be here.
Because he didn't trust the quarterback.
Okay.
Because he was unsure about the quarterback position. That should no longer be an issue.
It's so different. It's so different than saying it should no longer be an issue when DK Metcalf could go play with Jordan Love or he could go play with Drake May.
Look, I
love Drake May. It's just I'm looking at it from the player perspective, right?
I get that. I get that. I'm not sitting here telling you that because he requested this trade, snap your fingers, he's going to be a Patriot. What I am telling you is, I don't care what he said in the past. The Patriots should do everything in their power to get DK Metcalf to New England. They should not follow the playbook they followed the last few years. They should extend for Metcalf beyond what they extended for Ridley, beyond what they extended for Ayuk, beyond what they extended for DeAndre Hopkins a few years ago, beyond any of these guys.
Well, he's a better player.
A better player
Right.
than any of them.
But I think they would, like, my point is I think they would have done that with the Calvin Ridley if Calvin Ridley was better, right? Like, if Calvin Ridley was T. Higgins.
So Metcalf is better.
Yeah, and I think they'll do it. I just don't think he'll take it.
We'll see if it'll work or not.
He's going to have like half a dozen teams that are going to be giving him the same exact thing.
We'll give him something a little more than the same exact thing, is my point.
Oh, man. I wish it was that easy. I wish it was that easy. Like, I do. I wish it was that easy.
If you have the best financial offer on the table and he turns it down, and like by a significant amount, and he turns it down,
yeah,
what can you do?
Yeah.
If you're trying to, go on the margins to get by the next closest team, they need him. They should be more aggressive for him than the Packers should. Let me put it that way. Who needs DK Metcalf more, the Patriots or the Packers?
They should. I am protecting myself because I just know that he's going to pick another team.
I've been talking about this for months now, so I have no choice but to continue to hammer it.
Okay.
You think now I'm going to shut it down? I've been saying for months and months, Metcalf. Now he actually requested
I'm not
a trade,
telling you to shut it down.
Today's going to be the day that I'm like, it's probably not going to happen.
All right, let's get back to this list because we have 17 emails telling us that DK Metcalf requested a trade. We know.
Oh,
we know.
I appreciate everybody tagging me.
We know. I see you there on the phone, so let me just go through this really quickly because I did all this homework, and now this all gets blown up in the middle of the show, and we'll get to your emails and your calls here to wrap things up. Here are the 5. I don't know what you want to call them. What did you call them? Nuts and bolts free agents. These are the 5 nuts and bolts free agents I would go after. Levi Onwuzurike. Can you say it?
I have to see it to say it.
Onwuzurike is how I'm going to say it. Onwuzurike.
It's one of those ones like I have to read it to be able to.
Was with the Lions last year with Terrell Williams in that room, defensive line room. Really solid, just, all around kind of 3-4 end, 4-3, maybe plays the 3 tech, maybe plays the backside end. Like, he's just one of those guys that's just going to come in and do the job, right? He's a lunch pail kind of guy. In my mind, not exactly the same player, but like I think he would replace Dietrich Wise. He's kind of just like a younger, better version of Dietrich Wise, right? So Levi Onwuzurike. The next player that I have on here, I really like the idea of taking a flyer on Azeez Ojulari, former high draft pick. Plays the edge, can play that 4-3 end kind of role, like almost like a Harold Landry type of player. I really like the idea of him coming here, getting schooled up by Vrabel and Terrell Williams. Maybe you get him to that ceiling that people saw in the draft, high draft pick, that kind of thing. Again, not going to break the bank for him, but just another guy that you could say that you have a starting edge player with Ojulari coming here. Just a safe bet there. The next one, I kind of have 2 here. I'd go with either. It's fine with me. DJ Reed or Rasul Douglas, right? Just signed another starting caliber corner that can play on the outside.
Not Reed. They need size. But, yeah, in theory.
Either one. In my opinion.
What about Ward? Travarius Ward.
So I have Travarius Ward in a different I think Ward's going to make a little bit more money than these 2 guys. I actually really like the floated idea that's already out there of Jamie Sherwood. I think he's a good football player. Prototypical linebacker nowadays, a little bit undersized, but can fly around, make plays. Nice little compliment there to Juwan Bentley. You can put him in a little bit more high stress coverage situations than what you can do with the linebackers that are currently on the roster. I really like the idea of Sherwood. He's going to play weak side linebacker. He's going to play coverage. You're going to put Juwan Bentley next to him, who's going to be the thumper. That could really work out with the 2 of those guys next to each other. The last one here, which I feel is another under discussed point. I have Patrick McCarry down. I would also be game for 1 year of Kevin Zeitler because I just think he's a really good football player. But left guard. Left guard is a spot that I would try to fill in free agency on a lower term. Tevin Jenkins, is a free agent. really good player, but he's probably going to be pushing $15 million a year on a contract. I wouldn't necessarily invest that much in guard with Onwenu already paid, but a guy like Macari makes a lot of sense because he can play multiple spots. So he can basically just put out fires for you on a week-to-week basis. You're signing him to play left guard. He's probably going to play left guard. But let's say you get in a month into the season and your right tackle goes down with a short-term injury, Macari can kick out and play a little bit of tackle too for you for a game or two and just get by there. So I like him as sort of a likely starting left guard. If Layden Robinson comes into camp and he's a stud and you don't need him to play left guard, now he's your sixth offensive lineman and he's kind of your top backup at multiple spots. So I like Patrick Macari. So my haul, to sum this up, would be Javon Holland, Chris Godwin, or DK Metcalf, if that dream comes true, Ronnie Stanley / Cam Robinson, and then Onwenu, Ojulari, Macari, Rasul Douglas, let's call it, and Jamie Sherwood. I'd sign those 8 guys. Not on my list, Milton Williams, who is going to be the guy they sign.
Who they're going to sign, yeah.
Just really quickly on Milton Williams, I worry about Milton Williams a little bit. I worry that he is a complementary piece to a really good defensive line. Like, you have Jalen Carter next to him. You have Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat coming off the edges. He is the weak link, and I say that meaning like that whole line is stacked, right? Yeah. But he is the fourth string, on that line. He's getting a lot of one-on-ones. He probably is rushing on a backup guard in the Super Bowl, right? Like when the Chiefs have offensive line issues, like he's the guy that's not getting the double teams. He's the guy that's getting on the backups. He's feasting because Jalen Carter's got 6 guys on him, right?
Right.
And I would just worry a little bit about that with Milton Williams. He's also undersized, so he only played 48% of the snaps last year. In Philadelphia, he was kind of a rotational player for them in passing situations. Like, is he a 3-down player? Is he a product of Jalen Carter being next to him? Is that a guy that you're going to pay $20 million to? I say all this knowing that that's the guy that everybody's telling me they're targeting.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't, if they sign him on Monday, I'm not, just like I said earlier about Devontae Adams, like I'm not going to be mad about it, right? He's a good football player. I think he'll be a good addition. I just don't know if I would make him like the prized, signing of my free agency class.
Yeah, he's a good player. I'm with you. If he's the best player they walk away from this from, I think they probably left a little meat on the bone. But
yeah,
especially with Christian Barmore's status up in the air, like you do need an attacking defense.
You need another one
for this defense to work. So I kind of like with Javon. I almost feel kind of similar to him as I do with Javon Holland. I think Holland is a better player, but it's like, does he play the biggest position of need? No. Is he one of the best players available and just get good players in? Yes.
So the reason why, with Milton Williams, I also hesitate a little bit. I think there's probably about a dozen Milton Williamses in this draft.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's exaggerating. Like, I think that you can find Milton Williams.
I think
he's a good player, but you can find Milton
part
Williams.
of the value with Milton Williams is this is a guy that just won a Super Bowl, was part of an Eagles team that had a really good culture. He's a guy you're bringing in to be a building block.
He's a proven commodity.
Right. And he's 26 years old, so he was one of the young guys in Philadelphia. You're bringing him in to be somebody the rest of your roster is looking to for how it's done. And you're not obviously like the rookies are talented, but you're not going to get that from a rookie, not to the same extent you're going to get it from a guy. How many guys they have left on this team that have won a Super Bowl? Anywhere, not just here, anywhere. It's not a lot.
Dietrich Wise is a free agent. David Andrews, Joe
Cardona.
Yeah.
Jonathan Jones, free agent.
Yeah.
So, it's not that many. And there is, this is not something we ever really had to talk about here in New England.
Yep.
But we're kind of getting to that point where you want a couple guys on the team who have won at a high level because there's just sort of a authenticity that comes with that if they're in a leadership role. So I think that's part of the draw with Milton Williams or any Eagles player for that matter. Or, if you were to get a guy from the Chiefs, I think that's part of the reason. And I would have liked to see the Patriots maybe go after Joe Thuney when he was made available. But I think that's part of the reason that move makes so much sense for the Bears. That's a young football team. And you're bringing a guy in Joe Thuney. Has any active player won more than Joe Thuney?
Yeah.
He's going to be tremendous to set the culture there and help build the program around.
Fair enough. I don't hate Milton Williams. I just, like I said, I just have some reservations, mainly about okay, now that if he comes here in New England and Barmore's not healthy,
right,
and now he's the guy that everybody's, preparing their game plans and their pass protection, off of is like, we got to block Milton Williams. Is he going to be the type of guy that can still get pressure and still cause disruption when he's getting Jalen Carter type attention instead of the second fiddle? And I don't know about that. I'm not confident in that one. Confidence, it's important to have when you're on the road. With Bridgestone tires on your car, truck, SUV, or minivan, you're riding on tires you can trust. Bridgestone tires are engineered to give you peace of mind so you can focus on enjoying the journey. So whether you're on your morning commute, a cross-country road trip, or a relaxing Sunday drive, Bridgestone tires will be with you wherever your life's roads may lead. Bridgestone, solutions for your journey, available now at Sullivan Tire. And Catch-22 is sponsored by Massachusetts 250 campaign, commemorating a history of possibility. Plan your revolutionary weekend at Massachusetts250.org. All right, let's get to the phones. I
will say real
there.
quick, Jacob Morley, who's a Packer, a writer, I don't know if he's a reporter or whatever.
Yes.
This kind of reads like a report. I'm not that sure, but just put DK Metcalf. My guess is New England is willing to outbid everyone.
I hope so.
He also added, and I don't know if this is him thinking or if it's a report, but he did note this. Vrabel plus May. I don't think it is that hard of a sell for DK.
Okay. I hope you're right. Maybe the coach, but I think that podcast happened after Vrabel was already the coach. I mean, the Vrabel was the coach so quickly.
I think Vrabel was the coach. I don't think it was McDaniels, though. Let me ask you this. Do you think part of the sell, and this is kind of indirect, the answer to this might be no. I might be grasping at straws here.
You are.
DK Metcalf, a little bit similar stylistically to A.J. Brown. Do you think Mike Vrabel can go to him and be like, look at what I did for A.J. Brown? Come do that here in New England.
Yeah.
I guess it would help more if he had Matt LaFleur here. But
yeah, I don't know. I think the sell for DK Metcalf is all, as Mike Vrabel said about his,
it's
his
money.
Story, it's all about the green.
It's money at the end of the day, but...
And it's not the grass out here in Foxborough. It's the other kind of green. All right, let's get to the phones here. Will is in Kentucky. What's up, Will?
Hey, sorry. Phones making weird noises. My thing, first of all, with the DK said that he didn't like the state of Massachusetts, but he liked the Patriots.
He did say that. He did talk highly about the organization. Because the question was, would you want to live in Massachusetts? Which, again, I will say, half jokingly, Rhode Island is not a far commute.
Okay.
Second of all, on the arm measurements with Will Campbell, am I the only one that noticed that Ozzie Trapillo measured in at 33 inches?
No, a lot of these guys actually are shorter-armed tackles, or around that.
Isn't that really weird that a guy 6'8" has 33-inch arms?
What do you make of the report that, I mean, it's not a report. Some of the guys that also measured in at the Senior Bowl measured in shorter at the Combine.
It was consistently. So I do wonder.
Do you remember what Trapillo measured in the Senior Bowl?
No, but I do wonder if some of these measurements, the teams might do their own measurements when they have these guys in for visits.
I think for a guy like Will Campbell, that's absolutely going to be a thing.
Yeah, because of how inconsistent the measurements were from the All-Star games to the Combine. I think teams might have their own, they might measure themselves.
Trapillo was 33 and a half at the Senior Bowl, by the way.
Yeah, so maybe the Patriots measure themselves. I mean, look, as long as it's over threshold, Will, and thanks for the...
It's over 6'8". Sorry, go ahead, sorry.
No, yeah, as long as it's over the threshold, I understand proportionally it's a little weird, but I'm not too worried about it in terms of that. I mean, really what I was more worried about at 6'8" is bend and ability to get down and really sit and be able to block those guys. Nate Solder had a lot of problems with that.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
four guys in this draft that are 6'8". The longest one had 34.5-inch arms.
Yeah, they're making. Thanks, Will. Thanks for the call. We just got a lot of people waiting.
We haven't talked about Hall and Pierce yet.
We have a lot of short arm tackles in this class. A lot of 33, 33 and a half. Even Josh Simmons was, I think, 33 on the nose. And Calvin Banks was 33 and a half. Really long wingspan, but not particularly long group in general. Right. Which is why there's a lot of talk about, are these guys guards? There's been a lot of that, even for Banks. Banks has gotten some of that guard, flex type of stuff too. All right, Eric is in New Jersey. What's up, Eric?
Hey, how we doing, guys?
Hey.
Good.
All right, so I have a potential trade offer here, and I know this may be in la-la land here, but I was thinking, look at the Indianapolis Colts. They got 4 receivers. You just drafted Donnie Mitchell last year. You got Josh Downs, Alex Pierce, and Michael Pittman. I think Alex Pierce could be a lower level 1B. He's coming up on the last year of his contract. You can get that outside X speed guy. Still have a year of control to kind of work out a contract with him, kind of see how it works out here in New England. I mean, you're obviously going to have to give up something of value. I was thinking maybe if you gave up Joe Milton, I don't know how, particularly sold they are on, the future of Anthony Richardson. I know the coach is going to be kind of on the hot seat here. But kind of what are your thoughts on Alex Pierce and kind of probably bringing him in to the fold? I'll take it off the line. Thanks, guys.
Well, so just grab a receiver from the Colts. Is that what
Alec Pierce for Joe Milton?
Okay, well, that's not
Maybe
happening.
there was more in there. I do wonder if you could throw Joe Milton in a DK Metcalf trade, though, because they don't have a long-term option at quarterback beyond Geno Smith.
I'm with Felger on this. I was listening to you guys yesterday, and he was like some of the Joe Milton does not have the value that a lot of people think he does.
Well, there's a reason I said throw in, not trade.
Like maybe Joe Milton is the equivalent of like a 4th round pick in a trade.
Right. Well, what I'm saying, so again, that the reported deal for Metcalf from the Packers was like, 23 and a young receiver. Could you maybe swap out that young receiver for a young quarterback?
Possibly.
That's what you'd still have to give up. You're still gonna have to probably move up, get a 1st round pick, trade another pick, but instead of adding the young wide receiver as a sweetener, you add Joe Milton. I'm not somebody that really wants them to trade Joe Milton unless they get blown away. If it's to get Metcalf, though, yeah, you do it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Mark is in Connecticut. What's up, Mark?
Hey, guys. Love the Combine take
Thank you.
you guys
Thank
had
you.
on that. That was really good stuff, as always. Evan, I am 100% in line with you on Chris Godwin. Pay the man. Great receiver for Josh McDaniels' offense. I think he's going to be really a good player for us if they can get the deal done. The other thing was if Tyler Warren's not available when we pick, what is the consensus on Mason Taylor? Watch this kid at the Combine. He looks good. He almost looks like a Hunter Henry type of replacement, definitely for the future, for the next 8 years. Wanted to get you guys' take on him.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I don't think that Hunter Henry's a horrible comp, honestly.
No, it makes sense.
Natural pass catcher, maybe not going to, jump off the tape at you with explosiveness and speed, but just kind of gets the job done fast enough, quick enough. Those types of things with him. He's a really good player. Probably day 2 guy. I still think 3rd round is probably the sweet spot for Mason Taylor.
I think he might go higher. I think he's the 3rd. He's probably 3rd tight end in the class now, right? So if Loveland goes in the 1st round,
unless it's Elijah Arroyo, just from the receiving upside, Arroyo's a little bit faster. Like he's a little bit more of a seam runner that can threaten the seam, threaten crossers. But I look at those 2 guys, as probably in line, fighting for that tight end 3 spot. I think Warren and Loveland are in categories of their own, and then those 2 guys. And I still think Fannon's going to be in that discussion. Terrence Ferguson from Oregon is going to be in that discussion. Gunnar Helm will be in that discussion. Those types of players. All right, I know what this call is about from Eldred. Eldred, what are you giving up for DK Metcalf, my friend? How much?
Hey, fellas, how y'all doing?
Hey.
Good.
Hey, Barth, I'm with you, man. I was talking on 2019 at the draft. Get DK, and they got a Harry. And I told him about the draft, then Harry going to be a bust in 2 years. And I was right on both ends. But I traded number 4 for DK. Who you got at 4 is better than DK. But I would try to get they number 1 or they number 2. Who you got at 4 better than DK Metcalf?
Nobody.
On the board.
Nobody, but you're not. I don't think you have to give up 4 to get DK.
I think the real question is, let's say it's 4 back to 18 for Metcalf. Would you do that?
Yeah.
I think the Seahawks are at 18, wherever they are, 18, 19, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'd do that.
I would do that. I'd probably do that.
That might be the trade.
I would do it.
Not bad.
I would do it in a heartbeat. All right, y'all have a good one.
Thanks, Eldred. Right. I'm glad you called in. Eldred is along with you, Alex, is the biggest DK Metcalf fan on the. Let's unpack that for a second. So we're sure Seahawks are at 18 before we.
I want to find the exact. I literally was just looking for the number because I'm gonna have this take. I should probably have the number.
So
the Seahawks are at 18. Yes.
So the Patriots trade 4.
Yeah.
For DK Metcalf
In 18.
And they probably have to kick in more than just 4.
Call it the Matthew Judon pick, 77.
Sure. And they move back to 18.
Yeah.
In a crappy draft.
Good job.
In a crappy draft.
Yeah.
They move back to 18. And they get DK Metcalf. I'm in on that.
I'm so sign the papers.
Everybody wins, right? Like
yeah.
The Seahawks get a much better first round pick.
Yeah.
The Patriots get DK Metcalf. They pick somebody at 18 who's still going to help, but you don't have to overdraft somebody at 4.
Probably going to get one of those pass rushers. It's like a sweet spot. Shamar Stewart, James Pierce, those sorts of guys.
Right. Yeah. I think we might have just come up with something.
And if I got to throw in the Judon pick, I'll throw in 69 even. Doesn't need to be 77. One of those third round picks, right?
I just feel like if you, I don't know. I don't know if that's enough, right? Like if you're now, granted, DK Metcalf is seeking a trade. He wants out of Seattle. Right. I don't know how much leverage they necessarily have.
Let's. I think they're going to have leverage.
Yeah, and look at the 49ers with Ayuk. They ended up getting it done, and
Let's work in what the offer that is reported on the table, which is 23.
Yep.
And a young receiver.
Yep.
Would you rather add the 23rd pick? And I have 2 first-round picks. Would you rather add the 23rd pick or move from 18 to 4? In this draft, I'd rather move up. Another year, it might be different.
Yeah.
In this draft, I'd rather move up, especially if they're getting intel that maybe Travis Hunter's available.
Yeah, right. And, I just look at this draft,
yeah,
by 18, and I know this is kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth because I just said the Patriots could still get a fine player, but you're probably not getting a true difference maker at 18.
You know what the Seahawks, oddly enough, really need? Is a guard. They really need a guard. And they are a team that can afford probably to take a guard that high because they have some other pieces in place.
They also are a team that has continuously kicked the quarterback can down the road.
That is true. Do they the Seahawks could probably make better use of the 4th pick than the Patriots could. Maybe we're being delusional and talking ourselves into this, but
this is the first time where I've said that actually could work for DK.
Would you agree the Seahawks could make who's easier to project with the 4th pick, the Seahawks or the Patriots?
I would say probably Seattle because I look at Seattle as a quarterback team. Geno Smith is Geno Smith. He's a fine quarterback. They're never going to get over the hump with Geno Smith. He's not. They're not going to do any real winning with Geno Smith. Do they get up to 4 by making a trade like this, and then even pull off another trade, and they end up with Cam Ward, right? Or or they end up with Shador.
Or if they don't love either of these quarterbacks, you get the quarterback tax, you move down, you get a future first. Now you have 2 first-round picks next year. You're better positioned to get that guy.
Yeah.
As opposed to from 23, you're just drafting, and it's not nothing, but you're just drafting a player at 23.
Yeah, and the Patriots can be at 18. There's going to be probably a couple of different options for them that they're going to like.
That's probably an because you have the wide receiver box checked, right? You're not.
Yeah, but you could even
18.
Draft you can start talking about drafting a Josh Connerly in that spot too.
Yep.
Right.
Well, do we want to really play the fantasy out? You trade for DK Metcalf, you sign Cam Robinson or Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want with that pick.
Yeah. Yeah. I think edge rusher or defensive line is going to be where the best player is at that point, probably just based off of the depth of that position. Or
even maybe now a guy like Jahad Campbell's in the conversation.
Yeah.
You get that linebacker.
Defensive playmaker.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. We might have done it.
We will see.
All right. There's a good over-under in here that I wanted to, or not.
We got another call too.
Not an over-under, would you rather? But we'll read this one from Sean first. Sean, he just has a list of free agents. None of them huge names. These are more a couple big names, but mostly lower level guys. I'll just do rapid fire through these names, and you tell me yes or no. How about that?
Okay, let's do it.
Nick Westbrook-Akine.
Yeah, I like him and the Vrabel connection. No DK Metcalf, but if he's kind of like we talked about with Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
If he's a complimentary guy, if he's your third guy, like him, Douglas, and then an X to be named later, yeah, okay, I'm in.
Sounds a little bit like Kendrick Bourne in 2021.
Different sort of player, but yeah, I'd say similar role.
Draymond Jones, big defensive tackle.
Yeah. And like you said, they can get a guy in the draft.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hate if they signed him, but I don't think he's a guy they need to sign.
Speaking for big at his position, Carlton Davis, the cornerback.
Yeah, I do like Carlton Davis.
Yeah,
Carlton Davis is the corner I've wanted.
He had a little bit of a rough year last year, right?
Yeah, I think he's kind of banged up. He's getting a little older, but as a veteran to work with Gonzalez, a guy to play the second spot.
Yep.
Yeah, I would be in. I'd rather him over DJ Reed, honestly, because I think they need the size.
Josh Sweat, bigger name.
Yep. I don't think they're going to, but yes.
Doesn't sound like they're going to. Sounds like they kind of, at least based off the reports, it sounds like they kind of think Josh Sweat was the guy that was benefiting from everybody else.
Which could be.
Only reason why I like Josh Sweat, I probably wouldn't pay $20 million for this.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit like we were talking about with the linebackers before. Somebody needs to get the quarterback on the ground.
Right.
So, like, maybe the pressure is coming from up the middle, or maybe the pressure is coming from Milton Williams or Mason Graham or Christian Barmore or Keon White. But those guys are not sack guys.
Right.
They're pressure guys. So Josh Sweat comes in and he just cleans it up. Right. And if he has 12 cleanup sacks next year, someone got the quarterback down.
Right.
Someone got us off the field on third down.
Right.
Dre Greenlaw, Deuce guy. Dre Greenlaw.
He's coming off an injury, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Zach Bond.
No, see, he's the guy I really think was benefiting from the system.
From Fangio.
Yeah, I think he was a really good situation. Good player. I don't think he's going to be worth to the Patriots what he's worth to some other teams.
Different player. Reminds me a little bit of Kyle Van Noy with Bill Belichick. Right? Like, we're like...
Yeah, like...
Just perfect
It just
marriage.
worked here.
Yeah.
And that was what it was. And, yeah, no, I'm good on Zach Bond.
Nick Bolton.
Yes. PFF has him as like the 30th best free agent, which I think is nuts. We were both big Nick Bolton guys in that draft, and every year we've had to watch him make plays in the Super Bowl. Yeah, definitely in on Nick Bolton.
Yep. All right.
Is that it?
Those were the main ones. Yep. Another question here, draft question.
Yep.
So earlier in the year, this is I think pretty accurate. Earlier in the year, it was Will Campbell versus Kelvin Banks, right? For the top tackle spot. Now it feels like it's Campbell versus Membu. But I understand why post measurements and combine, it's not now Banks versus Membu. So basically, because of the combine, Banks and Membu both checked that 33 threshold. I guess it's not. It could be. I think the Membu versus Campbell debates are who's going to be the first offensive lineman taken. Not necessarily who's going to be the first tackle, but overall offensive lineman taken. I don't think Kelvin Banks is in the conversation to be the first lineman taken.
No, that's a good way to put it. Like Membu, I think, through the pre-draft process has passed Banks.
Yeah.
And it's tackle versus guard, not one tackle versus the other tackle.
Yep. I agree with that. And, the thing with Kelvin Banks,
he has fallen a little too much. Like, he's kind of gotten a little too far off the radar.
But Kelvin Banks, I think the biggest thing that I see with him is, like, the more space he's in pass protection, the less body control he has. So, like, when he expands and he gets out on an island in pass protection, he doesn't redirect very well or change directions very well. So, like, when you get those, like, twitchy, explosive rushers that can go inside or outside, like, he has a tough time staying in front of a lot of those guys. He's a power run blocking first guard. Or a tackle, excuse me, is how I would describe him. I don't think it's all that different from Will Campbell, honestly. It's different players.
He's better reach. I get what you're saying, but it's a little. It's different.
Yeah, it's different. But I would say that's the knock that you hear most consistently with Kelvin Banks is how good is he going to be in pass protection because of his body control and his change of direction ability. On tape, it gets a little dicey sometimes for him out there. All right. This is a one from Dave in Maine, and I've tried to answer this question a million different ways. Hopefully you can maybe help me out here, Alex. Will you please explain how 1 inch of arm length can be that big of a deal breaker? I can't wrap my head around it. I think the biggest thing is the threshold used to be 34 inches.
Yeah.
Then Rashawn Slater comes in, plays a great left tackle at 33 inches, so everybody opens their mind up to 33 inches. So when we go from 34 to 33 to 32 and 5/8, like, think about how far we've come.
Especially when players are getting bigger. And people only say that's only 2 inches. Well, first of all, it's an inch really on each side because the measurement is one arm. The other thing, and this is a little abstract, but maybe this is the best way to put it, and Bob Sosi wrote a great piece on this on 98.5thesportshub.com earlier this week. Think back to the opener this season. Do you remember how that game was decided?
Which game?
Chiefs-Ravens. First game of the year.
No, it was a long time ago.
Isaiah Likely
by
a toe, right?
Yeah.
What would you say that was? Like 2/8, 3/8 of an inch?
Right.
Right? That's just how football works sometimes.
Yeah.
It is really on the margins. There is no tangible way to show it, but you see it in the results. Kenbrell Tompkins in the pass game. Who was the corner? I should know this.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was Marcus Williams, right?
Yeah.
And you see how close that ball gets to Marcus Williams' hand, just over him with Brady dropping it in. And corner's a different one, right? It's a different threshold. But if his arm is a quarter of an inch longer,
Yeah.
nobody knows. Unicorn show ponies, where's the beef is some insane sentence.
Yeah.
Instead of an iconic part of Patriots culture. So, like, it's hard to point to it tangibly, but you're going to hate me for how cheesy this is. The Al Pacino speech from Any Given Sunday, the inches we need are everywhere around us.
You are
That's
right.
kind of what it is. You wanted me to explain it. Can you do better than that?
I mean, that's the easiest way to explain it. I think the biggest thing with it, though, is that when you watch Will Campbell on film, and we talked about this before the Combine, there are concerns about him being a shorter arm tackle that show up on the tape. If it didn't show up on the tape, then I wouldn't be as much of okay, I'm out on this now. The biggest thing is that he has to be very aggressive in pass protection because he can't just sit back and use his length to extend and buy himself time. So he comes out and he sets aggressively out in pass protection. So a lot of those twitched up rushers, Kyle Kennard, Shamar Stewart, those guys, all they were doing was they were just swimming right over him and going to the inside, right? So he would come out, there would be this big gap now off his inside hip, and these guys are just inside countering all day, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because of his arm length, because he can't extend and he can't get out there. So how is that going to be fixed? Like, how are we going to fix that is a question that teams need to ask. And if you then ask him to set more inside out, now he's going to be playing with a short corner, right? Like now he's not going to be able to protect the edge as well. So his skill set and his body type both scream guard. The question is, for a team like the Patriots, who are so desperate for tackle help, like, do you just see if he can do it anyway?
Right, because he's done it in college. It's if you believe he's a generational talent, like, because that's what he'd have to be to play tackle. He'd have to be a truly rare talent. You do it, but just remember, Evan, when you add up all those inches, that's the difference between winning and losing.
Oh my goodness! All right, Victor, bring us home, Victor. Victor is in Florida.
It's a
What's
great
up?
movie.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey,
good.
Hey, so I've just been running the draft situation in my head and kind of thinking, if Carter and Hunter are gone at 4, if you are Elliott Wolf, what do you do?
This is the big question.
Yeah, that's the number one question. That's a good way to end the show.
Yeah.
Thanks, Victor, because this is the number one question that we're going to be answering for the next month and a half.
Go back to the beginning of the show, because this was my opening take.
Yeah.
If you can get tackle addressed in free agency, who do you think is the best football player on the board? Is it Tet McMillan? Is it still Will Campbell? Is it still Mason Graham? Is it Will Johnson? Is it Ashton Genty? Is it Tyler Warren? Is it Kelvin Banks? And there is going to be arguments for all of those players. You just who helps your football team the most from that group?
Fair enough. I think that the number one obvious answer is dump the pick. Like, somebody come trade up.
Well, but here's the problem. If there's nobody,
someone take the pick.
It's not that simple.
Take the pick.
It'd be great, but
take it.
They might not.
I understand, but that's number one, right? Like, we've both said this take in different ways because I think it annoys both of us that everybody just assumes you can just trade down, right? You can't trade down. It's not that automatic. It takes two to tango. Number one option is to trade down. No doubt about it. Number two option, I would probably go best player available at a premium position, whether that's pass rusher, that's Armand Membu at tackle. You think Tyler Warren can be a number one, option in an offense, right? Like, those are all premium type positions. Tet McMillan, to me, I would probably steer in that direction. I think that, I know that's a little bit of a cop-out because I didn't pick anybody, but I'm just saying that whoever they think is the best player at an impact position.
So your answer is basically anybody but Genty.
Correct.
Okay.
Or Will Campbell if you think he's a guard.
Okay.
Right. So Mason Graham is like a little bit like on the fringe for me. Like pass rush, interior pass rush is becoming more and more and more important. So it's hard to say that it's a complete non-impact position. But it's tough. Last email here because I just like that it's picking on you.
Oh boy.
Barth in Poland, who's a fan of the show, has a list here because he thinks that you're overrating DK Metcalf.
Okay.
So he has a list of I think almost 20 receivers that Barth in Poland thinks is better than DK Metcalf. So I'm going to read them off, and you just tell me yes or no.
Okay, let's see.
Jamar Chase.
Is this like last year? Because he had a down year last year, but he wasn't a system fit.
Just answer the question.
Okay, Jamar Chase is better. Justin Jefferson's better.
Tyreek Hill.
No. Not at this point. Not at 30-something years old.
You think DK is better than Tyreek Hill?
Let's assume it's a 3-year extension. Who would you rather have for the next 3 years? That's how I'm going to do this. Tyreek Hill or DK Metcalf?
Probably DK.
Yeah. No, Tyreek Hill at his peak was much better. Absolutely. He's best receiver in the league. He's not getting better at this point. He's only going to get worse.
CeeDee Lamb.
Draw.
I'm taking CeeDee.
I like them both.
A.J. Brown. I'm taking A.J. Brown.
So no, they're like the same player to me.
No, A.J. Brown's better.
All right.
Nico Collins.
DK.
Yeah, I agree with that. Puka.
DK.
Amon-Ra.
DK.
Malik Neighbors.
That might be Neighbors. I need to see what he builds on the rookie year. He has a chance to be.
Brian Thomas Jr.
DK.
T. Higgins.
DK.
Agreed. Garrett Wilson.
DK.
It's close. Drake London.
DK.
I agree with
Drake London's just a worse version of DK Metcalf.
Jackson Smith and Jigba.
DK.
Agreed. Mike Evans.
Mike Evans. Oh, Mike Evans. I was thinking Mike Williams for a second. If we're doing the next 3 years thing, DK. Mike Evans, unbelievable player. But I think, you know what, I shouldn't say I think he's going to fall off because I've said that and he's not. But I'll say Mike Evans there. I have too much respect for Mike Evans. I'll say Mike Evans.
Devontae Adams.
DK.
Terry McLaurin, excuse me.
DK. There's a lot of old receivers on this list.
Devontae Smith.
DK.
So I would say that DK to me is 10 to 15-ish.
I think he's in like the 8 to 10.
10 to 15-ish. Really good player, though.
Yeah, and he's what, like 27?
Yep, elite receiver.
Yeah,
elite receiver.
Do you want to talk about Tuesday morning? What are we doing about this guy kind of player?
If you want to talk about, and then I know we got to wrap.
Yeah.
If you want to, we threw out a lot of names. Chris Godwin.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett. Christian Kirk. All these guys are available. There is no doubt that DK Metcalf is now the best receiver available.
It's not close.
And it's not particularly
I would even put
close.
Did you say T. Higgins?
I didn't.
You did?
I did not.
Oh, I would still, even if you want to throw Higgins in there, I think Metcalf's better.
So he's the best receiver available.
Yep.
The Patriots are one of the teams that desperately needs receivers. Yep. They should be doing what
it
takes.
So I'm glad you said that because let me be clear about something here. Because I got asked, and this applies to two players.
Okay.
Right?
Then we got to go.
And then we got to go. On the Will Campbell's arm length thing. Everybody's how you're so obsessed with Will Campbell, and now your guy's gone. Like, how upset are you? And the same with T. Oh, boy, Barth thinks DK's so good. But I'm not obsessed with Will Campbell. I'm obsessed with the idea of making sure Drake May's blind side is protected. I'm not so much obsessed with DK Metcalf as I am with the Patriots getting a true game-changing wide receiver. Those just happen to be the guys, or we thought Campbell was the guy, available, the top guys available to do that job. That is what I am hyper-focused on. It is not necessarily, no offense to Will Campbell or DK Metcalf, but if, name a receiver, right, was available. If we found out, if A.J. Brown requested a trade today, it's not like I would be, no, it's DK, he's the guy, but it would be, all right, we'll get one of the two, right? If we found out some tackle was available today, it's not that I'm pounding the table for Ronnie Stanley. It's get somebody that you don't have to worry about Drake May's blindside. Those are just the guys cast in those roles this offseason.
All right, so we'll be back on Catch-22 next Wednesday, same time, same place. That is technically the first day of the league year, but the cool thing for our show is that all of free agency will basically be over because of the tampering period. So
it'd be cool to get one signing live. That might be fun.
Next week, we'll be able to break down all of what hopefully will be a very active first couple days of free agency for the Patriots on Monday and Tuesday. So until then, signing off for Alex Barth, Evan Lazar. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.